Chapter 512. Dominating Blade Technique, 3,000 Illusory Worlds. Chu Tianqing's voice resounded from the peak of Mount Han. The originally clear sky suddenly darkened. Thousands of illusions rose up in the void. Among them, giants bowed their heads, demonic shadows were destroyed, Tao wheels rose into the sky, and all the worlds were reincarnated. Countless immortal miracles evolved the changes of history, and among the thousands of illusions, a black-robed youth slowly walked over, as if he had descended from the ancient times and pierced through the ages. Suddenly, the youth transformed into a long blade and shattered the illusory world. With a point of sharpness, it swept across all directions. In just an instant, the endless illusions were shattered. There was only one blade left between heaven and earth. Blade will crisscrossed, as if there were 3,000 of them, tearing the void apart. 3,000 blade shadows fell from the sky like a killing array, making one's scalp tingle and unable to dodge. But at this time, Chu Tianqing's figure was also somewhat swaying, and there were even traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that with his current strength, it was impossible for him to withstand the true dominance of this blade technique. But he had no other choice. Since he had given his love to a person in this life, he would not retreat, exchange, or regret. This saber strike was terrifying to the extreme. Even the god emperors of the Han Palace, who were hidden in the void, had some shock on their faces. Vaguely, they felt a trace of the great Tao in the blade will that filled the sky. As expected of the number one genius of the western border, the blade maniac lived up to his name. At the very least, in the eyes of the god emperors, there was absolutely no one below the divine lord level who could resist the power of this illusory world. This blade is rather interesting. Ling Xiao nodded slightly, and there was finally a trace of seriousness between his brows. Then, in front of everyone's expectant eyes, a pitch-black blade appeared in his hand. Compared to Chu Tianqing's 3,000 illusory worlds, this black blade seemed too ordinary. On the blade, there was not even a trace of cold light. But when they saw it, they felt a different kind of fear. There seemed to be gods and demons howling in their ears, and heaven and earth crying. So, Lord Ling Xiao was also a blade cultivator. No wonder he could see the flaws in Chu Tianqing's blade will at a glance. But in the face of this blade that almost shook heaven and earth, how would Lord deal with it? Unfortunately, it's still too weak. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the 3,000 saber shadows with an indifferent expression. Then, he raised the black blade in his hand and gently slashed at the void. Suddenly, a dark light shone in the sky. There was also no devilish qi within it, but there was a hint of world-destroying intent within it. With regards to the Emperor God experts who were hiding in the void, Ling Xiao naturally noticed them. Therefore, he did not use his full strength and only used his spiritual energy. The power of heaven's punishment was something that even gods and Buddhas could not resist. Even if the world devastator Tao Law did not appear, how could a mere divine general resist it? The originally dead, illusory world suddenly appeared in the sky. Vast and mighty divine might spread out, containing a domineering aura that could suppress the heavens. Compared to the primordial sky demon, all living things in this world were like ant. What was tyrannical? The heavenly Tao did not tolerate it, and it was eternal. Once the demonic saber was unleashed, all immortals and Buddhas would be slaughtered. You destroyed the 3,000 illusory worlds, and I destroyed the primordial grandmist. Comparing the two, it was clear who was stronger and who was weaker. A wisp of black light appeared in front of Ling Xiao. Then, heaven and earth seemed to fall into a state of silence. Endless darkness shrouded the entire Mount Han. Even the many Emperor God experts widened their eyes and looked in disbelief at the terrifying saber light that swallowed all the light in the world. Boom! In the end, the two equally powerful saber lights collided in midair. In an instant, all life on Mount Han was extinguished, and the heavenly Tao no longer existed. The void shattered layer by layer, and the entire world was destroyed. The Cold Moon Palace Master's expression changed, and she stepped out. The might of a 7th-grade god-emperor formed a heavenly pillar and sealed the space where Ling Xiao and Chu Tianqing were. Even so, the terrifying might that overflowed still overturned the ancient palace at the end of the square. Even the Cold Moon Palace Master's body trembled inexplicably, and her eyes were filled with intense shock. As a divine general, he could shake the might of a god-emperor. At this moment, she did not know whether to call Ling Xiao and Chu Tianqing monstrous or terrifying. Finally, the black light swept across the sky and swallowed the 3,000 saber shadows. In a radius of 1,000 miles, the blue sky shattered, and the sound of Tao was endless. However, under the Cold Moon Palace Master's divine light, the people on the mountain peak could not see the changes. Thus, when the world regained its clarity, everyone only saw a white-clothed figure standing with his hands behind his back with an indifferent expression. The mountain wind blew, and his white robe and hair fluttered. He looked indescribably elegant and free. Zhang in front of him, Chu Tianqing's face was pale, and he seemed to be frightened. However, there was not a single wound on his body. Who won? Looking at the two people above, the entire Mount Han was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. No matter who won or lost today, it was obvious that the world would be shaken. That unparalleled saber intent was not something that a divine general could resist. No. Even a divine overlord expert would not dare to easily suppress the two of them. Crack. Until, suddenly, a crisp sound came from the void. Everyone looked over in confusion, and they saw that the ancient saber in Chu Tianqing's hand had shattered inch by inch. Ling Xiao's attack did not seem to cause much damage, but it was extremely humiliating. A firefly dares to compete with the bright moon? At this moment, he only smiled gently, and his face was handsome. Why do you think I gave Chu Tianqing 3 chances to attack? Am I a saint? Damn. Use your smart head. The first time, test Chu Tianqing's strength, and confirm whether he is a soft persimmon. The second time, force him to use his trump card, and test how soft he is. The third time, dig out the secret of his rise and become the heavenly mandate. Then, won't I be able to do whatever I want? What shape I want to shape you into depends on my mood. On Mount Han, countless disciples looked serious, and the respect in their hearts surged. Listen, they are both acting cool, but Lord Ling Xiao is acting so elegantly. Feeling the disdain and ridicule in the eyes of the people on the mountain peak, Chu Tianqing rolled his eyes, and his body suddenly trembled, and he fell from the sky. Damn. Life is really full of ups and downs. This feeling of being ridiculed and looked down on, he was too familiar with it. Beep, the heavenly mandate's Tao heart is unstable, and he feels that he has lost both his saber and woman. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain point. Brother Tianqing. Yuan Yao was shocked, and her figure rushed out, wanting to catch Chu Tianqing. But at this time, Mo Weiyao was one step ahead, and appeared in front of Chu Tianqing, and caught him in the air. Damn. Princess Yuan Yao, you are now the Lord's woman. It's better if you don't touch him so much. Lord Ling Xiao, there is no need to thank me. From today onwards, Wuya is willing to become a bootlicker, and lick you until you are satisfied. Beep, the heavenly mandate's child, Mo Weiyao, has the intention to submit. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 300 luck points and 3,000 villain point. Brother Tianqing. Yuan Yao's eyes were red, and her mood was somewhat complicated, although she knew that today's chaos was caused by her. But she did not expect that the final outcome would be so tragic. That saber was Chu Tianqing's life. In the letter, the latter did not call it a saber, but a close friend. Now that the saber was broken, and Chu Tianqing's life and death were unknown, the outcome of this battle was finally clear. Lord Ling Xiao had won. It's fine, he just fainted because his mind is unstable. This is a heart-nourishing pill. I'll have to trouble young Master Mo to feed it to him. Even though he had won, Ling Xiao was still calm, and did not show the slightest bit of arrogance or excitement. His current actions made countless Western border geniuses sigh in their hearts. They could only look up to the young master's righteousness. Chu Tiancheng was both a love rival and an opponent. But when Chu Tiancheng was injured, Lord Ling Xiao actually took the initiative to give him a pill. What kind of benevolent and righteous action was this? Suddenly, even the usually cold and arrogant Yu Xiao, who was angry because Ling Xiao forced Xia Feng to leave, could not help but nod slightly. This young man was not as cold and heartless as he seemed on the surface. Could it be that there was really something wrong with Feng Yi? Otherwise, with his character, why would he target him like this? Beep, the heavenly mandate's child, Xia Feng, has a rift in his heart with his closest kin. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Chapter 513. Ling Xiao raised his head and glanced at Yu Xiao, who appeared in the sky. His eyes were cold, but he sneered in his heart. As expected, the relationship between Yu Xiao and Xia Feng had already affected the latter's destiny. It seemed that this Go Jiao still trusted and respected his master quite a bit. This way, tonight's show would be more meaningful. Seeing Ling Xiao looking at her, Yu Xiao's expression froze. Although it was still cold, it wasn't as indifferent as before. She nodded slightly and turned to leave. She didn't have a problem with Ling Xiao. Similarly, she didn't like the holy sect, but she also hated demons. However, ever since her senior sister died and Ren Yueying took over the Cold Moon Divine Palace, she felt that her senior sister's death was related to the holy sect. Ling Xiao was the disciple of a divine envoy, and he also forced her most valued disciple to leave. Although Feng Ye's escape was strange, Yu Xiao still didn't believe that he was a demon. But today, after seeing Ling Xiao's actions, she was moved by the latter's integrity. There was no need for such an upright and righteous young man to frame a divine envoy's disciple, right? But in the end, Yu Xiao still couldn't figure out the reason. Perhaps the truth would only come to light on the day he met Yi again. Princess Yuan Yao, I wonder if you can come with me. I have something to ask you. Ling Xiao descended from the sky and landed beside Yuan Yao with a gentle smile. This is, my lord. Yuan Yao glanced at Chu Tiancheng, who was unconscious in Mo Hui's arms, and hesitated. But in the end, she followed Ling Xiao to the ancient palace in the depths of Mount Han. With the elixir given by my lord, Brother Tiancheng's life should be safe. In order to completely resolve the knot between them, Yuan Yao felt that she had to have a good chat with Lord Ling Xiao. She admired this disciple of a divine envoy, but when she saw Chu Tiancheng's body fall, her heart ached. This pain made her understand that she couldn't lie to her lord's feelings. If she couldn't completely forget Chu Tiancheng, then she wasn't worthy of his love. It was only when the two of them were far away that Mo Hui's eyes flashed with a hint of contemplation. Since Chu Tiancheng dared to provoke Lord Ling Xiao, he deserved to die. But His Excellency bestowed him with pills. Wonderful! What a good move! In this way, not only would he be able to win Yuan Yao's heart, with Chu Tiancheng's cold and arrogant temperament, it would be hard for him to pull himself together. Suddenly, Boundless Mo was even more determined to suck up to Lord Ling Xiao. Otherwise, with Lord's scheming mind, licking to death. In the hall at the top of the mountain, Ling Xiao sat in front of a table, looking at Yuan Yao in front of him. His eyes were filled with deep emotion, but the corners of his mouth were hidden in a playful smile. My lord, you asked for me. Don't call me lord. You and I are about the same age and have similar temperament. Especially your kindness and kindness, I admire you greatly. Yao, if you are willing, you can call me Big Brother. Ling Xiao's tone was filled with warmth. Coupled with his handsome face, it instantly caused Yuan Yao's face to blush. Of course I am willing. Big Brother Xiao, do you really think I am kind and benevolent? Yuan Yao's eyes were filled with joy. She had a good impression of Ling Xiao because she felt that he acknowledged her, supported her, and had the same ambition as her. Unlike the other Western Borders Heaven's Prides, Ling Xiao's approval and support carried more weight than the other Western Borders Heaven's Prides. Of course, Yao Er's tolerance towards others is rarely seen in the world. Since I was young, I have heard a saying, benevolence is invincible. Yao your Tao will definitely lead you to the Western Paradise. Ling Xiao's expression turned serious as he spoke righteously. Western Paradise? At this moment, although Yuan Yao was happy, she felt that something was not quite right. Western Paradise? When I read the ancient books, I once saw an ancient record. In the Western Paradise there were Buddhas and monks. In my eyes, Yao Er's benevolence is comparable to that of the Buddhas. No, Yao Er is simply the reincarnation of Buddhas. Your benevolence can change the world. But Big Brother Xiao, or there will always be people who will say that Yao Er's actions will cause trouble sooner or later. Yuan Yao lowered her head as sadness flashed across her eyes. Her originally beautiful face now looked even more pitiful. Cough, nonsense. Yao is gentle and kind. How can you cause trouble? In my eyes, you are a noble holy mother. Ling Xiao almost laughed out loud. Suddenly, a murderous look flashed across his face. Holy mother? At this moment, Yuan Yao was honestly a little confused. It seemed that Big Brother Ling Xiao's words were very profound. There were even some words that she had never heard of before. It seemed that Big Brother Xiao was really well versed in ancient and modern times. She did not expect that Big Brother Xiao's cultivation was so high and his status was so honorable. He must have a lot of things to do on a daily basis, but he still had time to read and study. Truly, the role model of my generation, the benchmark of the righteous path. Holy, the holy of the Holy Church, sacred and supreme. Mother, kind and gentle, benevolent and noble. Holy Mother, caring for the world, supreme. Ling Xiao raised his head to look at the distant sky. There was an inexplicable deepness between his brows. Hearing this, Yuan Yao's lily-white hand lightly covered her red lip. Her beautiful eyes flickered with tears. Holy Mother, what kind of noble title was this? I did not expect that in Big Brother Ling Xiao's eyes, I was actually so great. Big Brother, you're making Yao very shy. So Yao you don't have to care about the eyes of those ordinary people. How can those ordinary people understand the true meaning of benevolence and kindness? You have to believe that your Tao is above the Western heaven. Today's evil words are all experience. Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and gently rubbed Yuan Yao's black hair. His eyes were deep. There is no Bodhi tree, and the mirror is not a platform. There is nothing, so where does dust come from? Yao don't bother about dust. Big Brother, you are indeed knowledgeable and talented. There is no Bodhi tree. Big Brother, don't worry. Yao will forge my mirror heart platform and work hard to cultivate my heart. I will no longer care about these words. Beep. The destined woman recognizes the devil as her big brother. The courting of death has begun. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Hearing the notification from the system, the smile in Ling Xiao's eyes became even wider. Seeing his smiling face, Yuan Yao's lips also curled up into a beautiful arc. Big Brother smiled. He must be feeling gratified by Yao determination. Alright, Big Brother, you said that you have something to discuss with me. What is it? Inexplicably, Yuan Yao's face suddenly flushed red. Even her voice was somewhat shy. After all, when Big Brother Xiao fought with Chu Tianqing, he was betting on himself. Could it be? Big Brother is going to confess to me? I'm so nervous, but I'm also looking forward to it. Oh, if you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. The Cold Moon Immortal World is about to open. At that time, Yao come with me, right? Moya is right. With your character, you are too easy to be used by bad people. I will only be at ease if you are by my side." After saying that, Ling Xiao suddenly stretched out his hand and gently held Yuan Yao's hand. The latter's expression trembled. She only felt that her heart was beating wildly. However, there was also a different kind of sweetness. And I will listen to Big Brother. Chapter 5:14. But, brother, can you promise me one thing? Yuan Yao suddenly looked at Ling Xiao hesitantly, looking pitiful. To be honest, this princess of Deyuan's looks were indeed outstanding. Her skin was fair, and her facial features were exquisite. She looked like a pretty girl from a humble family. It was just that her personality really made it hard for him to swallow her. "Yaoer, tell me. As long as I can do it, I will promise you." Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. He had already guessed that this little saint was hesitating about Chu Tianqing. After all, with her personality, how could she bear to see her beloved brother make things difficult for her little sweetheart? "Brother, today you fought with Chu Tianqing and destroyed his illusory world ancient saber. I'm afraid his Tao heart will be affected when he enters the immortal world." Yuan Yao suddenly stood up and bowed to Ling Xiao. "Brother, I have known him since we were young. Although we are close friends and he brought this upon himself, I still want brother to help him." In Yuan Yao's opinion, Brother Xiao was righteous and selfless. Although her request was a little abrupt, brother would definitely agree to it. "Oh? How do you want me to help him?" Ling Xiao's lips curled into a playful smile. The reason why this saint was hated was not because they were kind and pure, but because they liked to flaunt the righteousness of the world based on their own preferences. No matter good or bad, good or evil, in their eyes, there was something good about it. There was a saying, "Do not persuade people to be kind." In this world, there were some people who did not deserve to be forgiven. For example, Ling Xiao. "Brother, can you ask him to follow us? When we get the good fortune, you can distribute it. I just want to protect him. Then, I won't feel guilty. After all, it was because of me." As she spoke, the tears in Yuan Yao's eyes grew thicker, and 2 streams of clear tears flowed down her cheeks, instantly causing a wisp of heartache to flash across Ling Xiao's face. "Yaoer, don't cry. My heart is broken by seeing you like this. I don't have any conflict with Chu Tianqing. I just want to tell him that there are some people he doesn't deserve. I promise you." Brother. Yuan Yao's pretty face froze, and a trace of panic flashed through her beautiful eyes. This is Brother Xiao confessing to me? Chu Tianqing wasn't worthy of it, but Big Brother was. Yaoer understands. Thank you, Big Brother. Yuan Yao's tears turned into laughter. The more she thought about it, the more embarrassed she became. She actually got up and ran out of the hall. However, just as her figure was about to walk out of the main hall, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. Both of her hands held onto the door as she turned her head to look at Ling Xiao shyly. "Big Brother, don't worry. Yaoer will definitely explain things to Chu Tianqing clearly. He and I can only be friends." As soon as she finished speaking, Yuan Yao's figure had already disappeared before Ling Xiao's eyes. Beep, the destined woman has decided to sever her predestined marriage, taking a big step towards death. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. F***CK. Friends, just now, in front of the main hall of the Immortal Palace, if I hadn't interrupted you, you and Chu Tianqing would have acted as if no one else was present. Now they're friends again? As a result, whether it was the gardener who knew the art of tea or the White Lotus Mother who cared for the common people, there was probably not much of a difference between them. There were many people who liked her, but if one wanted to be her one and only, not only did he have to be strong, handsome, and honorable. More importantly, he had to talk to her about ideals. That's right, Big Brother. What I like is your character and inner qualities. I don't like those vulgar things. But, why are you running? Ling Xiao sneered. There was no longer a trace of warmth on his face. He was so unrestrained, but Yao Yao refused. Young master likes this Yuan Yao? At the side of the main hall, Han Qingqiu did not open her mouth. With Ling Zhao's temperament, there was nothing to be surprised about. But, this Yuan Yao was a little too much, right? Like. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and turned to look at Han Qingqiu. Is she worthy? The women I like must be useful to me. An indiscriminate harem is a stud horse. Useful? Then Qingqiu is also useful to young master? Han Qingqiu furrowed her brows. She was clearly a little surprised that Ling Xiao would say such words so directly. Otherwise, why do you think you're still alive? Ling Xiao smiled faintly and walked towards the back of the main hall. Compared to those hypocritical princes, this Ling Xiao is quite magnanimous. Han Qingqiu watched as the tall figure disappeared. In the end, she sighed helplessly. But, in my eyes, aren't you also a useful person? In the realm, Ling Xiao stood in the void and looked at the figure in the forest below. At this moment, Xia Feng seemed to be in a state of cultivation. However, the corner of his mouth unconsciously curled into a smile. It was a little silly. Little Leek, you must perform well tonight. I, Ling Xiao, personally arranged this scene for you. The supporting characters are all great demons by my side. In the end, Ling Zhao's figure disappeared and reappeared in the Sky Palace. In his hand, the immemorial demonic blade shone brightly. However, there was a faint fluctuation of divine spirit hidden in it. Senior, are you comfortable in my demonic blade? A smile appeared on Ling Zhao's face. Just now, when he destroyed Chu Tiancheng's illusory world ancient saber, he felt the existence of this remnant soul. With the ferocity of the immemorial demonic blade, how could a remnant soul escape from his hand? However, this time, Ling Xiao did not devour it directly. Instead, he kept it in the blade and imprisoned it temporarily. Boy! Who are you? This blade, where did you get it? At this moment, this remnant soul was naturally Elder Dao, who helped Chu Tiancheng change his fate. He was only a second-stage divine emperor. To Ling Xiao, he was not much of a threat. Old senior, why don't you tell me who you are and why you're hiding in the blade? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He was not interested in Elder Dao's background. Back then, Elder Ling, who was in Lin Shi's body, was thrown into the Soul Palace and killed by him. What value did a mere remnant soul of a divine emperor have? However, the only thing that interested Ling Xiao was that since this soul was hiding in the blade, could it become the weapon soul of his demonic blade like Gui Wupu? Chu Tiancheng's last move, 3,000 illusory worlds, was obviously executed with the help of this old man's strength. If he was refined into a weapon soul, would the immemorial demonic blade's power be increased? I am Dao Lang, the Xingzhou Saber Emperor. Little friend, do you think there's some misunderstanding between us? Elder Dao's voice was sincere, but there was also a trace of inexplicable fear. At this moment, how could he not feel the terrifying demonic power contained in this blade? Even Ling Zhao's previous slash had surpassed his understanding of blade intent. It was obvious that this young man in front of him had an extremely terrifying background, the reincarnation of an immortal or the transformation of a great demon. However, he did not kill him. He only imprisoned him and did not hurt Xing. Perhaps there was still a chance to turn things around. Chapter 5:15. Misunderstanding? Perhaps Elder Dao really did misunderstand. Hearing the sincerity in Elder Dao's tone, Ling Zhao's playful expression became even more intense. Humans never shed tears until they see the coffin. You've already fallen into my hands, do you still want to live? I only ask you one thing. Are you willing to be the weapon spirit of my saber and assist me in conquering the world? Weapon spirit? Elder Dao was obviously shocked. He did not expect this young man to be so ruthless. He actually wanted to call him the Xingzhou Saber Emperor, the weapon spirit? Although he was now in dire straits and his strength was gone, the pride in his heart had never been extinguished. Temporarily staying in the saber was just to secretly recover his strength. One day, when Chu Tiancheng could inherit his will, he would definitely avenge him and eradicate the sacred sect. Old friends, I risked my life to stop you in exchange for a chance to live. I wonder if you are doing well now? What? Elder Dao is not willing? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. He had never heard of the Saber Emperor. The history of the Xingzhou was magnificent. There were many experts and monsters. Almost every 100 years, a peerless person would appear. But the Saber Emperor? If you were really powerful, you would have already ascended to the upper world. Why are you still struggling at death's door? Although I'm just a remnant soul, how can I be the weapon spirit of your saber? You're insulting me. Elder Dao's voice had turned cold. Elder Dao, you've misunderstood me again. How can I be insulting you? I just want to give you a chance to live. Ling Xiao shook his head. Since this old thing was not willing, there was nothing more to say. Although the dominating saber art was peerless, how could it be compared with his 9 moves of the Taigu? You don't think that you can kill me just because you can imprison me. Kid, you're underestimating me. Elder Dao screamed in despair. But before his voice faded, the world in front of him suddenly changed. The demonic will that had been binding his body had long since disappeared. But why was the world in front of him so dark? Also, what was up with that black soul palace in the distance that towered into the sky? Wasn't it too majestic? Old Dao? Ling Xiao walked out of the darkness and looked at the old man in front of him. The latter narrowed his eyes and frowned. You are from the saint? Quite the opposite. Ling Xiao grinned as a devilish light suddenly erupted from his body. Then, under Elder Dao's dumbfounded gaze, he actually transformed into a 100-meter-long demonic shadow. Demon! A true devil! No wonder the demonic intent within the saber was so terrifying. It turned out that this young man was actually a great demon. Young master, please don't do anything. We're on the same side. However, what surprised Ling Xiao was that Elder Dao, who had a cold and arrogant look on his face a moment ago, now looked as if he had just seen his loved ones, and revealed a bright smile. One of our own? Not bad. Young master, I am the 3rd of the Xingzhou's 7 devils, demonic blade wombing. Xingzhou's 7 devils? Lifeless blade? A hint of surprise flashed through Ling Xiao's eyes. He had heard of this name before. It was said that 100 years ago, 7 great demonic cultivators suddenly appeared in the Xingzhou, and each of them had a tyrannical cultivation. However, although these 7 people cultivated the demonic path and called themselves devils, they were not as ruthless and murderous as the rumors said. Instead, they were chivalrous and righteous, eliminating evil and bringing peace to the people. For a time, the saints' faith was questioned, and the people's hatred for the devils was not as strong as before. However, very suddenly these 7 devils disappeared. Or rather, they disappeared into thin air. Of course, with Ling Xiao's understanding of the saint would naturally not let go of these people who claimed to be devils and humiliated the saint. However, it was said that the weakest of these 7 people was a 5th-stage divine emperor, especially the leader of the 7 devils, Qin Demon, who was extremely terrifying. According to the rumors, the saint had once sent a divine envoy to lead 3 divine emperors to attack Qin Demon, but in the end only the divine envoy returned with serious injuries. From this, it could be seen that Qin Demon's cultivation was at least an 8th-stage divine emperor. That's right. Young master, Lifeless Blade is willing to fight against the saint with you. At this time, Elder Dao only thought that Ling Xiao was a devil, and that he would definitely oppose the saint. However, what he did not know was that this devil was completely different from them. They believed in devils, but only because they believed in the freedom of devils. As for Ling Xiao, he had the innate coldness of a devil. Moreover, Ling Xiao, the sky demon, was the first true devil born in the primitive age. He used the heavenly Tao as a punishment and immortals as his enemies. He could kill all the obstacles that stood in his way. Elder Tao, you are indulging in fantasy. Pucci. Just as Lifeless Blade was looking forward to it, a trace of evil flashed across Ling Xiao's eyes. He turned into a devil shadow and enveloped Lifeless Blade. At this time, he was curious about the whereabouts of the remaining 6 great devils. However, what value did a blade demon, who had lost his physical body and his cultivation level, have? In terms of value, Ling Xiao felt that his divine soul memory was more useful. Crunch, crunch. Accompanied by a strange chewing sound, the Black Soul Palace behind Ling Xiao grew a few feet taller. A wave of memory instantly flowed into Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness. I see Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a scarlet light. He seemed to be thinking. In Lifeless Blade's memory, the reason why the 7 devils disappeared was that the divine master of the saint had surrounded them in a valley in Zhongjiang. In the end, Lifeless Blade destroyed his physical body, and the Guqin demon burned his cultivation level to fight for a chance of survival. Since then, the 6 devils' whereabouts were unknown. However, Lifeless Blade was lucky enough to escape with a wisp of his divine soul and hid in the fantasy world 3000. It seemed that the divine master of the saint had a terrifying cultivation level. In Lifeless Blade's memory, the 7 devils had an agreement. One day, when they overthrew the saint and returned freedom to the world, the 7 of them would live in seclusion in Nanjiang and find a place with mountains and seas to play the guqin and brew tea. They would live happily and not care about worldly affairs. From the looks of it, the 6 devils might still be alive, and they might be hiding in the southern border. After all, the saint's control over Nanjiang was weak. Given the strength of the 6 devils, if they wanted to live in seclusion, even the Divine Master would not be able to find them. But, for some reason, Ling Xiao felt as if he was looking at another mandate of heaven who was standing on a mountain far away, calling out to him affectionately. Come. Happy. The 7 peerless masters were determined to return freedom to the world. In the end, the 3 devils died and the first devil destroyed his own cultivation. How could they be willing to die in the middle of the road? Devils did whatever they wanted, but they were also stubborn. Moreover, the 7 of them were all amazing talent. Any one of them had the potential to establish a sect. Now that they were living in seclusion, perhaps they were preparing for an even greater change. We can't defeat the Divine Master of the Saint, but in the Xingzhou, perhaps only the Divine Master can suppress the 6 of them. But if the talents of the 6 were gathered in one person, would it be possible to step out of the shackles and become the sole master of the world? So, my 6 masters are super fierce, aren't they? Or could it be that my 6 masters were all big shots in the cultivation world? I just don't know if this lucky person is a cute girl or a young man who is going to die for sure. Don't speculate. I don't have any other intentions. I just want to meet this Tianming who shares the same ideals as me as soon as possible. Damn. Chapter 516. Southern Border. Seems like a good place. Ling Xiao's demonic aura dissipated, and he appeared in the main hall. However, the leek in front of him had not been harvested yet. There was no point in thinking too much. If the 6 great demons really took in a disciple, it was obvious that this person was extremely talented and had terrifying means. In that case, his luck would be even more terrifying. Damn. I wanted to go to Southern Border to eat some seafood, but I didn't expect to be served a plate of leek. Well, it's said that oysters and leek are better roasted. However, before that, Chu Tianqing, my good disciple, do you have a lot of questions and unwillingness now? Cold Moon Celestial Mountain, the genius's bedroom. Chu Tianqing lay on the soft bed and opened his eyes in a daze. Although his aura was a little weak, it was not weak. With the 4th grade elixir given by Ling Xiao, Chu Tianqing's injuries were not worth mentioning. Of course, his injuries were not serious, but it did not mean that the crack in his Dao heart would disappear. Especially now that Yuan Yao had a good impression of Ling Xiao, the goddess of destiny's consolation would definitely hurt his heart even more. Do you think this is the end? Haha, what am I, Ling Xiao, best at? Playing with the chosen one? No, no, no. I just want to give him a little help, a little hope, when he is at his most desperate. Do you think you are in hell? Don't be nervous, baby. I am here. I will patiently tell you that there is more than one layer of hell. Brother Chu, you are awake. Just as Chu Tianqing was at a loss, a sweet female voice suddenly came from beside him. Brother Chu? For a moment, Chu Tianqing thought that it was a girl from Western Border who secretly admired him and was secretly taking care of him. But why does this voice sound so familiar? It shouldn't be. Yao has never called me Brother Chu. Until Chu Tianqing tilted his head and looked at the beautiful smiling face standing beside the bed. His eyes suddenly widened. Even the corner of his mouth was faintly bleeding. What? When I was invincible in Western Border, you called me Brother Tianqing. I just lost today, and now I am Brother Chu? Suddenly, Chu Tianqing felt a chill in his heart. He felt his scalp itch and his entire body prickle. As expected, Big Brother Zhao's medicinal pill is truly miraculous. Brother Chu's injuries actually healed in a single day. Yuan Yao smiled sweetly, her face gentle. Ling Zhao's saber was extremely powerful. In the eyes of outsiders, even if Chu Tianqing didn't appear to be injured, it was most likely an act. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fainted. But Chu Tianqing actually recovered from such serious injuries in a single day. What did this mean? Chu Tianqing's talent was extraordinary? Of course not. This meant that Big Brother Ling Zhao's pill was terrifyingly precious. But just as Yuan Yao's voice fell, she saw Chu Tianqing's eyes roll back, and he almost fainted. Brother Xiao? Medicinal pills? What kind of medicinal pill? Yao, what did you say, what medicinal pill? Chu Tianqing took a deep breath, barely suppressing the anger in his heart and doing his best to sound as calm as possible. Oh, Brother Chu, there's something you don't know. Just now, when you were knocked unconscious by Brother Zhao's blade, it was he who took out a medicinal pill and saved you. Otherwise, I'm afraid Brother Chu would have died. What? Chu Tianqing's eyes widened and he directly sat on the bed. Breaking my illusory blade, trampling on my dignity, taking my woman, this Ling Xiao actually saved my life? Poochie. This time, Chu Tianqing couldn't hold back the blood at the corner of his mouth and directly spat it all over the ground. Beep, the destined child's heart is filled with resentment. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Brother Chu, what's wrong with you? Yuan Yao's expression was flustered. She hurriedly took out several jade bottles from her Qiankuan bag and poured out 4 or 5 medicinal pills with dense spiritual energy. Then, she supported Chu Tianqing's back with one hand and fed the pills into his mouth with the other. Brother Chu, take the medicine. Brother Xiao said that your injuries aren't serious. Take his pill, and you should be fine after 2 days of rest. Brother Xiao. Brother Xiao. Brother Xiao. Yuan Yao, could it be that 10 years of feelings really couldn't compare to a person you just met? But it was also very sad. Just now, her panic when looking for spiritual herbs didn't seem to be fake. What did this mean? It meant that she actually still cared about me in her heart. But being weak is the original sin. Just like what Elder Dao said, there were no immortals or demons in this world. Whoever stands high has the right to choose their identity. The law of nature is that whoever is stronger has the right to choose a spouse first. Yao, I don't blame you. Blame me. I'm not strong enough, not hard enough. My saber can't cut Ling Xiao. Yao, I'm sorry. Chu Tianqing shook his head blankly. His mind was in a mess. Especially Ling Zhao's last slash. Although it wasn't enough to completely shatter his Tao heart, it was already on the verge of collapse. The illusory world was already shattered. Where was his Tao? Of course, compared to ordinary destined children, this Chu Tiancheng was someone who had fallen once. So, cold words and ridicule were no longer a blow to him. However, Ling Zhao's strength made him feel incomparably oppressed. That tired figure in white was like a mountain, pressing down on him until he couldn't breathe. But, so what? When he was framed by his clan brother and all his meridians were broken, wasn't he also helpless? At least this time, his cultivation was still there, and Yao didn't really leave. I still have a chance. Elder Dao said that in this world, all the tribulations that can't kill you will eventually make you stronger. I'm already invincible among my peers. I didn't expect that today, I would unexpectedly find motivation. Ling Xiao, today's slash, I will definitely repay it. At that time, I will personally take back everything that belongs to me. Beat. The destined child has a strong Tao heart and sees demons as a stepping stone. Protected by the Tao of heaven, luck increased by 500 points. Brother Chu? Brother Chu? Looking at the dazed young man in front of her, Yuan Yao frowned and the worry in her eyes grew. She wanted to draw a clear line with Chu Tiancheng and give her heart to Brother Xiao as soon as possible. But her template meant that she couldn't bear to see even a trace of suffering. Actually, Brother Chu, you don't have to be so depressed. With Brother Zhao's strength, I'm afraid that no one in the Xingzhou's younger generation is his match. For someone like him, his peers are all ants. How could he be easily defeated? Losing to him isn't something to be ashamed of. Yuan Yao comforted him softly without any hint of mockery. But every destined child was proud. How could they admit that they were inferior to others? Being belittled by the woman he loved almost shattered Chu Tiancheng's Tao heart that had just stabilized. Pucci. Also, Brother Chu, I've already discussed with Brother Xiao. When we enter the secret realm, the three of us will travel together. He will protect you. With Brother Xiao taking care of you, you will definitely be fine. Pucci. Chu Tiancheng fiercely swallowed the blood in his mouth. Chu Tiancheng. Why would I need someone to protect me? Brother Chu? Brother Chu? It seems that your injuries haven't completely recovered. I won't disturb you anymore. Rest well for a few days. The frigid moon immortals should be opening soon. I'll come call for you then. Yuan Yao sighed softly and looked deeply at Chu Tiancheng. Brother Chu, don't worry. I will never leave you. No matter how many people despise or curse you, I will never leave you. In my eyes, even if you're completely defeated and crushed by others, you are still my brother. Yao will protect you. It was supposed to be an affectionate speech, but when it came out of Yuan Yao's mouth, it felt a little strange. I only lost one match. How did I lose so miserably? Also, didn't I lose to Ling Xiao? You said it yourself. No one in the Xingzhou of the same generation is his match. How could I be despised and mocked by others? Why do I feel like you're the only one who despises me? Damn! Chapter 5:17. Yao Yu, is she trying to humiliate me? Chu Tiancheng took a deep breath. His face was ashen. Brother Chu, lie down and rest. Your face is green. I'll leave you these bottles of elixirs. They're all elixirs to replenish your qi and blood. Take them. Yuan Yao turned around and left, feeling sad. Chu Tiancheng waved his hand and knocked the bottles of elixirs to the ground after she left the hall. There was not a trace of injury on his body. In other words, Ling Xiao could not bear to hurt him. After all, the immortals were counting on the chosen one to perform well. If he was injured, wouldn't it affect their performance? He was just a divine general. He could be killed whenever he wanted. Therefore, Chu Tiancheng was injured in his mind and Tao heart. Elixirs could not heal him. Yuan Yao. One day, I will prove that no one in the Xingzhou is worthy of you except for me. Elder Dao. Chu Tianqing finally calmed himself down and called out softly. The 3,000 illusory blades had been shattered, but he could not detect Elder Dao's aura. However, with Elder Dao's means and cultivation, he could hide in the blades and avoid being killed. How could he be killed so easily? Ling Xiao was strong, but only among his peers. If they were not at Cold Moon Celestial Mountain, the outcome of this battle would be uncertain, because he still had a trump card that he had not used. That was transformation and fusion. Elder Dao. Elder Dao. However, Chu Tianqing called out 3 times in a row, but he did not get any response. His heart began to sink, turn cold, and fall into despair. F***CK. Elder Dao could not have been killed by Ling Xiao and the illusory blades, right? Without Elder Dao, I, Chu Tianqing, am nothing. Suddenly, Chu Tianqing felt cold all over. He slumped on the couch, and his eyes gradually became hollow. I'm having a mental breakdown. In one day, Elder Dao and his true love were both lost. Beep, the chosen one has a mental breakdown. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain point. Elder Dao. I'm sorry. At this moment, Chu Tianqing's heart was filled with regret. If he had known the outcome would be like this, why would he have fought with Ling Xiao? Now, not only was the saber broken, even Elder Dao was broken. Why are you crying? I'm not dead yet. However, at this moment, an aged voice suddenly sounded in his sea of consciousness. Chu Tianqing's expression instantly froze. He was so emotional that tears streamed down his face. Old Dao, where are you? There are many experts in this Cold Moon Immortal Mountain. Earlier, when the illusory saber shattered, it almost exposed my whereabouts. Don't contact me for the next few days. When the time is right, I will contact you. Hiding in the void, Ling Xiao sent a message with his soul consciousness. What a joke, even if he did not hide himself, just standing outside the palace, who in the entire Cold Moon Immortal Palace would dare to question his actions? As for this Chu Tianqing, there is a 90% chance that he will not be able to walk out of the Cold Moon Immortal world. Why do you care where I hide? Elder Dao. It's my fault. Chu Tianqing gnashed his teeth and clenched his fist. It was because of his selfishness that Elder Dao had almost died. Others did not know Elder Dao's identity, but he did. The world would not tolerate the enemy of the Holy Sect. However, according to Elder Dao, the Holy Sect controlled people's hearts and fooled the world. His great wish was to eliminate the Holy Sect for the world and return freedom to the world. Although he was not strong enough and died in the process, his great wish should be passed down. I have already told you that if there is no woman in your heart, you will be able to pull out the saber. However, you can't let go of your obsession and ended up in this situation. Without strength, can you protect the woman? Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. When it comes to acting, I am not targeting anyone. Everyone in the Xingzhou is just a little brother. Cheng you got the order wrong. As long as you reach the top of the world, do you think Yuan Yao will not be moved? You fainted just now, but I saw it clearly. Yuan Yao almost threw herself into the arms of the Holy Sect's handsome, immortal-like. Cough, cough, Elder Dao. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Chu Tianqing wiped the tears from his face, his eyes full of apology. Only in front of this old senior could he let go of all his worries. As for why he did not suspect Ling Xiao at this time. F***CK. You are looking down on my acting skills and the power of my divine spirit. I have already searched that old thing's soul. Isn't such a simple imitation the self-cultivation of an actor? What's the use of knowing your mistake now? Your saber has been broken. Elder Dao's voice was a little angry, and Chu Tianqing immediately buried his head in his pants in guilt. More than once, Elder Dao had reminded him not to be emotional. Women would only affect the speed of his saber. However, he did not take it seriously and firmly regarded Yuan Yao as the driving force of his cultivation, where his Dao heart was. However, today, when he was defeated, the truth that he was proud of was shattered in the face of reality. That's right. Chu Tianqing could completely imagine the scene of Yuan Yao throwing herself into Ling Zhao's arms. After all, she had called him Brother Xiao. The relationship between the two had probably surpassed his own. Strength. That was the way of the king. Elder Dao, don't worry. From today onwards, I will let go of the feelings in my heart and focus on saber cultivation. You are right. Only by standing at the top of the world can I protect everything. Chu Tianqing took a deep breath. The struggle in his eyes gradually dissipated, turning into a bone-deep determination. It's too late. I can see that you have deep feelings for that girl. It will be difficult for you to completely forget her. Some things, the more you suppress them, the more painful it is. Elder Dao sighed bitterly, as if he was sad. Elder Dao, I can do it. Why are you being so stubborn with me? I have seen so many people and so many things. How can I not see through your little thoughts? In the sky, Ling Xiao frowned slightly. You can my ass. If you can, how will my plot develop next? Shut up. I said no, you can't. But Chu Tianqing's eyes were filled with doubt. He said hesitantly, Elder Dao, you mean, I have no hope of surpassing Ling Xiao in this lifetime? That's not right. That Ling Xiao also has a woman by his side. She also seems to be interested in Yuan Yao. But why can he draw his saber and I can't? It's not completely hopeless. I have carefully studied that young man's saber intent. The biting cold and domineering aura is something I have never seen in my life. It is obvious that before he cultivated this saber, he must have been a determined young man who only had the saber in his heart. As soon as Elder Dao's voice fell, Chu Tianqing suddenly understood. Oh, so that's why. Ling Xiao only came out to flirt with girls after he cultivated the saber. He got the sequence right. But, Ching are you really willing to let go of all your fetters and devote your heart to the saber? Of course. Elder Dao, as long as I can cultivate a saber intent stronger than Ling Zhao's, I will do anything you want me to do. Chu Tianqing's eyes were deep and there was no longer a trace of hesitation. All right, open your mind. I will teach you a technique that can break that young man's saber. Chapter 518. Thank you, Elder Dao. Chu Tianqing did not doubt him and directly opened his mind. His face was filled with excitement. After 10 breaths of time, his eyes suddenly opened, and then he bowed deeply towards the void. Thank you, Elder Dao, for teaching me this peerless technique. At this moment, in his sea of consciousness, a saber art turned into thousands of small words. Above the saber art, 4 golden words shone brightly. Evil Warding Saber Manual. However, the 3 words Evil Warding Saber and Manual were square and vigorous, with a kind of vigorous and biting cold intent. But why was the word saber a bit sloppy? As if it was changed by someone? The saber art that Elder Dao passed to me must be an ancient technique, but why does it seem cheap? Cough cough. Seeing the confusion in Chu Tianqing's eyes, Ling Xiao immediately coughed twice. This art is a strange art. The person who created this art finally reached the supreme realm, but, Elder Dao, please tell me. Chu Tianqing's eyes narrowed, and a faint sense of uneasiness flashed through his heart. If you want to practice this art, you must forget about women. Don't worry, Elder Dao. This time, I will definitely. No, Ching you might have misunderstood. Take a look at the first page of the saber manual. Ling Xiao smiled evilly, while Chu Tianqing looked at the small words in his sea of consciousness in a daze. In the next moment, his eyes suddenly widened, and even his face was filled with a thick sense of horror. Under the 4 words of the evil warding saber manual, a line of small words flickered with light. If you want to practice this art, you must first castrate yourself. F***ck. This is forgetting about women? This is depriving me of the right to be a man. How could this be? How could there be such a harsh condition for a cultivation art in this world? If the purpose of cultivation was not to show off and women, then what was the point? From an ant to the 9 heavens 10 lands, I have been fighting dungeons and monsters all the way, aren't I tired? But, humph. The reason why I didn't teach you this art before is precisely because the cultivation of this evil warding saber technique is harsh. I thought that you would be obedient and let go of your feelings, but I didn't expect. Sigh, if that Ling Xiao wanted to kill you today, you would already be a dead man. Ling Xiao's tone was deep and reproachful. Chu Tiancheng's lips trembled, not saying anything for a long time. Dao Elder, is there no other way? At the end of the day, self-castration wasn't a big deal, but it was extremely humiliating. If others were to know that he, the dignified crown prince of Chu, was actually a person without roots, then wouldn't he become the laughingstock of the entire western border? Moreover, in the end, he wanted to defeat Ling Xiao and reach the top of the world because he wanted Yuan Yao's approval. What Elder Dao said was right. Severing the threads of love was easy to say, but how many people in the world could actually do it? But I can't even be a man anymore. How am I supposed to become an immortal? That Ling Xiao's saber art is extremely young and domineering. It's quite extraordinary. However, his true strength is not his saber art, but his saber intent. Now that you want to defeat him and become the sole ruler of the world, this evil warding saber art is the most suitable. Ling Xiao snorted coldly. Seeing that Chu Tiancheng was still hesitating, he immediately sighed. I understand your concerns. But Cheng-Er, you've already died twice. You can't do the same thing 3 times. If there's another time, I'm afraid your life will be in danger. Dao Elder. This saber art is extremely keen and soft. It can restrain most of the domineering cultivation techniques in the world. As long as you master it, you can wrap Ling Xiao with your keen and soft power. I guarantee that he'll be happy. No, he'll be in so much pain that he'll wish he was dead. But, moreover, this is the only way I can think of to cut off the threads of love in your heart. Solve the problem from the root. Only by cutting it off for eternity can it be considered a real solution. Moreover, as long as you can step out of the shackles of heaven and earth and cultivate to the supreme realm, you can even reconstruct your broken limbs, let alone that place. Ling Xiao's sincere guidance made Chu Tiancheng gradually waver. That's right. It was said that as long as one's cultivation was high enough, not to mention the physical body, even the spirit could be reconstructed. Before that, what did it matter if he was wronged and ridiculed? The peak of martial arts was lonely. It was lonely at the top. Only adversity could sharpen one's heart. At this moment, Chu Tiancheng suddenly understood. Perhaps this was Dao Elder's expectation of me? What he wanted was never for me to become the strongest in the Xingzhou continent, but to become the strongest in the 9 heavens. Today I'll cut off the roots of love. From now on, I'll have no more desires and focus on the Dao. What Ling Xiao? He's just a stepping stone on the long road to immortality. I should thank him for helping me understand what is real in this world and what is just an illusion. Dao Elder. Finally, Chu Tiancheng took a deep breath and took out a long saber from his cosmos bag. I understand. Puchi. There was no hesitation or regret. Blood spurted out like a pillar, instantly drenching Chu Tiancheng's robe. But at this moment there was no trace of pain on his face. Only a teardrop seemed to fall from the corner of his eye. I am not a man anymore. Endless humiliation filled his heart in an instant. At this moment, Chu Tiancheng's eyes gradually turned blood-red. Beep, the chosen one's Dao heart has been humiliated and there are signs of turning into a demon. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Hearing the notification from the system, Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with a smile. In just one day, the #1 prodigy of the western border had almost ruined himself. Now, he had 2,500 luck points left. However, soon, Ling Xiao would make him understand what it meant to lose one's roots and love. Sai Ching don't be too sad. As long as you can master the warding evil saber technique, it will be more than enough to kill Ling Xiao. But this technique is obscure and difficult to understand. You must not be impatient and cannot use it in front of others. After all, it's a little evil. Ling Xiao reminded him one last time, and Chu Tianqing only nodded slightly. Everything that happened today was all thanks to Ling Xiao. Now, he only hoped to master this technique as soon as possible and kill this bastard. Only then could he relieve the pain in his heart. Ching don't worry and cultivate. I will hide first. When the immortal world opens, I will find a chance to sneak in and help you fight for the fortune. Thank you, Elder Dao. Chu Tianqing stood up and bowed to the void. He did not get up for a long time. When there was no more movement in the hall, Chu Tianqing picked up something from the ground and cried bitterly. Outside the main hall, Ling Xiao heard the sorrowful voice coming from within, and the corners of his mouth curled up in a sinister smile. Who told you to be pretentious and steal women? This is the price you have to pay. It was not until night fell that Chu Tianqing gradually calmed down and cultivated the warding evil saber technique seriously. However, this cultivation caused his originally humble heart to suddenly surge with excitement. Didn't Elder Dao say that this ancient saber technique was obscure and difficult to understand? Why did I comprehend it after just looking at it casually? In the end, this technique was an item of the secular martial arts world. It was not even comparable to the most basic cultivation techniques on the path to immortality. But with Chu Tianqing's trust in Elder Dao, how could he have thought of this? At this moment, Chu Tianqing's face was glowing and his face was rosy. He sighed in his heart. I, Chu Tianqing, am indeed a saber genius. Ling Xiao, just you wait. When I master this technique, I will kill you with my saber. Chapter 519. In the depths of a barren mountain in the southern border. The barren mountain was hidden by the deep sea. Snakes, scorpions, and ferocious beasts roamed freely. However, there was smoke rising from the chimneys in such a desolate place. It seemed that there were people living there. In the valley in the mountain, simple thatched cottages rose from the ground. They were lined up neatly. Upon closer inspection, there were actually 7 cottages. It was a scene of a remote mountain village. At this moment, in one of the cottages, a middle-aged man in green clothes with a gentle face stood with his hands behind his back. He was looking into the distance. There wasn't a single spiritual wave around him, but he gave off an unfathomable feeling just by standing there. More importantly, his right hand behind his back was missing a section of his little finger. Big brother, this is bad. At this moment, in the distant valley, a white-clothed figure suddenly rushed over. The person who came was also middle-aged. He was dressed in white clothes. His face was elegant and had a scholarly aura. At this moment, he was holding a soul tablet in his hand. However, there was no spiritual light flickering on it. Fourth brother, why are you panicking? The green-clothed man frowned slightly. Among the 7 brothers, the 4th brother was the calmest other than himself. However, looking at his current appearance, he was more or less panicked. Something big happened. Big brother. 3rd brother's soul tablet is broken. The white-clothed scholar's eyes were red. There seemed to be tears in them. The green-clothed middle-aged man's body instantly trembled. He held the soul tablet handed over by the former and did not speak for a long time. However, there was a trace of extreme coldness in the depths of his eyes. In the end, we can't get through this? In the battle that day, The third brother risked his physical body being broken to buy time for himself and the other 5 brothers. Just now, he was able to burn his cultivation to help the second brother set up the universe-shifting formation and escape. However, what they did not expect was that although the third brother's physical body was broken, his soul was not extinguished. In other words, the third brother was not dead. Big brother, you asked me to calculate the location of the third brother. However, for the past few decades, I could only vaguely feel that he was in the west. However, I could not find him accurately. However, this morning, when I wanted to use the divine armament technique again, I found out that the soul tablet of the third brother was broken. The white-clothed scholar's tears flowed down his face. He looked sad. The third brother died for them. During these 100 years, the 6 brothers were always looking forward to reuniting. But now that the saint was tyrannical, for the sake of everyone's safety, the green-robed man did not allow anyone to leave the village. Who would have thought that their parting that day would be their eternal parting? Big brother! We must take our revenge. The white-robed scholar gritted his teeth as his emperor might surged. He was actually a 5th-stage god-emperor expert. Chu-er, has she come out of seclusion? The green-robed man sighed. How could he not want to avenge his brother? However, the cultivation of the divine master of the divine sect was terrifying. He had already stepped out of the shackles and was not someone the brothers could contend against. Otherwise, why would they have fled to this place and concealed their identities? Furthermore, in order to escape, he had not hesitated to burn his cultivation. Although he had recovered, he was no longer the zither demon that the righteous path of the Xingzhou continent feared. Recalling the past, when the Guqin demon appeared, he would play his 9 fingers lightly. Those who heard him would be scared out of their wits, and those who listened would be scared out of their wit. It was impossible to guard against. But now, even though he was still a god-emperor, he was no longer able to play a peerless soul song. Because he had fear in his heart. The divine master of the sacred cult. The 7 demons of the Xingzhou continent were all absolute geniuses. The great demon Wenryu, known as the Zither demon, used souls as songs and killed people without leaving a trace. The 4th demon Jian Yunliang, known as the Book demon, used the Xianwang ancient book to predict the past and present. But now, the once all-powerful great demon was like a mortal, living a secluded life, aloof from worldly affairs. But had they really let go of the great ambitions in their hearts and only wanted peace? Obviously not. Not yet. This time, Chu-er's breakthrough to the Divine Lord realm will definitely attract a lot of attention. Big brother, the day before yesterday, I divined that a great enemy is coming. Jian Yunliang's expression was solemn and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Someone who could be called a great enemy by the 6 demons was most likely an expert of the saint. Should we, don't act rashly for now. When Chu-er comes out of seclusion, the southern border's grand event will be held. At that time, with Chu-er's talent, he will definitely become famous and get the opportunity. If he can take over the tribes of the southern border, the saint can be slaughtered. Although Wenryu's name was warm and simple, his words were filled with endless killing intent. It is said that there is a heaven's pride in that tribe? I wonder how she compares to Chu-er. Haha, with the combined strength of the 6 of us, no one in the same generation in the Xingzhou is a match for Chu. Jian Yunliang shook his head and smiled. When he mentioned Chu-er, his eyes were filled with gratification. 30 years of hiding, 30 years of searching for one person, 20 years of teaching one person. Now, all the hopes of the 6 demons were on Chu-er. So, we can't act rashly now. As long as Chu-er can grow smoothly, sooner or later, he will fulfill all our ambitions. When Ryu sighed softly, her starry eyes shining brightly. Chon'er, I will definitely avenge you. No matter what I have to pay, I will make him die without a burial place. Yes. Big brother, don't worry. Chu will definitely reach the top of the Xingzhou in 100 years at most. Cold Moon Immortal Palace. The moon was as cold as water and there were branches supporting the night. Normally, at this time, most cultivators would be deep in thought or asleep. Only the disciples and elders of the Immortal Palace cultivated with the moon. This was the best time to cultivate. At the peak of the Immortal Mountain, in a hall, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the bright moon in the distance with a smile on his face. Chu Tiancheng was basically crippled. Now, he just needed an opportunity to completely shatter his Dao heart. Then, this Tianming's Dao path would stop. Next, Xiafeng, are you ready? It's time for you to perform. Ling Xiao slowly walked out and walked towards the back of the mountain. There was an obscure aura sitting on the peak of the cloud mountain, quietly cultivating. For Xiafeng, in the entire Cold Moon Immortal Palace, only his master, Yu Xiao and Han Qingqiu could attack his Dao heart. However, Han Qingqiu still had a mission and it was not suitable for her to completely fall out with Xiafeng. So, disciple, are you really a demon? Master, I'm not. You're not? Then why are you with a demon? IF*CK. It's a long story and you may not believe it. In short, it's very complicated and difficult to explain. Even if I explain, no one will believe me. It's too difficult for me. Suddenly, a strange buzzing sound came from the depths of the cold palace. Then, Xingshun and Xiafeng appeared out of thin air and hid in the forest. Seeing the familiar scene, Xiafeng's eyes were filled with shock and surprise. What an awesome teleportation technique! Most importantly, this technique was so miraculous that not only did it avoid everyone's sight, it even avoided the sect-protecting array of the Cold Moon Immortal Mountain. Inexplicably, Xiafeng was even more in awe of this great demon in front of him. At this moment, a scene that made Xiafeng even more excited appeared. Not far away, a white-robed figure slowly walked towards the depths of the Immortal Mountain. Not only was there no expert accompanying him, but he also did not have any companions. F***CK. This is. I want to sleep and you send me a pillow? Ha 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 ha. Ling Xiao, what should I say about you? Aren't you awesome? Aren't you always targeting me? Tonight, I'll let you know the feeling of living a life worse than death. Chapter 520. Elder Xing. Elder Xing. It's him. It's him. My enemy, Ling Xiao. Xiafeng was agitated. He pointed at Ling Xiao and almost screamed. F***CK. It's late at night. Why did you go to the back mountain, instead of staying in the palace? Ling Xiao, did you know that I was coming? Did you come to deliver your head to me? Beside him, Xingshun gently nodded. I know. You know? Suddenly, Xiafeng felt a sense of uneasiness in his heart. It shouldn't be. Didn't Elder Xing come from Xingyuan Mountain? When had he ever seen Ling Xiao? When I look at this young man, I see that he's elegant and handsome, and there's an immortal aura circulating around him. He must be a dragon or phoenix among men, an outstanding talent. Xingshun's tone was serious, and his expression was inexplicably grave. This Xiafeng frowned. Although Xingshun was right. Ling Xiao was indeed handsome and had a celestial air about him. But was it really appropriate to praise an enemy's young man like that? Xingshun didn't move until Ling Xiao was far away. Elder Xing, he went over. Xiafeng's face was blank as he watched Ling Xiao disappear in front of him. In the end, he swallowed his saliva. Slap. Xingshun slapped Xiafeng's head. Xiafeng felt the pain but didn't make a sound. He was afraid. Although Xingshun was smart, this was the Cold Moon Immortal Palace, the headquarters of the enemy. Once his identity was exposed, he would be called a demon and might be killed by the palace's experts. It would take time to run away. Xiafeng was worried that he wouldn't be able to last one breath in front of an emperor god. Do you think I'm blind? I didn't see him go over there. This, you. Xia Feng gritted his teeth and cursed in his heart. However, he kept a smile on his face. Let's go. Follow him. He went to the back mountain in the middle of the night. He must be up to something. Let's go and see what he's up to. After saying that, Xing Shun immediately chased after Ling Xiao. Xia Feng only hesitated for a moment before he could only grit his teeth and follow. In fact, according to his character, he should immediately attack and kill Ling Xiao, then turn around and run. Follow them? Don't you know the saying, curiosity kills the cat? This is Cold Moon Immortal Palace. Your methods are quite brilliant, but your cultivation is still there. If by any chance you were to disturb the Frost Moon Palace Master or those 6th or 7th stage God Emperor Elders, wouldn't you be walking right into a trap tonight? But what can I do? I also want to run. But with my strength, I won't be able to break the sect-protecting grand formation above my head. I can't just walk out of the mountain gate. F***ck. It was only when Ling Xiao suddenly stopped in the distance that Xing Shun and the other man's faces turned serious. Then, the young man suddenly stretched and turned his head to look at Xing Shun and the other man. Xia Feng. You actually dare to come to Cold Moon Immortal Palace? At this moment, Ling Xiao's voice was clearly wrapped in spiritual energy, and it instantly spread over 100 miles. The entire Cold Moon Immortal Palace was brightly lit, and even the grand formation above their heads was shining with a brilliant light. Xia Feng stood there with a blank expression, and Xing Shun also pretended to be blank. You piece of trash! It's none of my business. I didn't move, senior. Xia Feng was about to cry. He had clearly tried his best to conceal his presence, so how could Ling Xiao have sensed his presence? This was illogical. Senior, let's hurry up and run, or it will be too late. Humph! Wait for me for a moment, just a moment, and I will be able to kill this boy. Xing Shun's expression turned serious, and a demonic aura covered the sky around him. The entire ancient forest withered in an instant. An evil and sinister aura surrounded Ling Xiao. At this moment, Xing Shun naturally sensed the aura at the edge of the ancient forest. With Yu Zhao's strength, even if she couldn't sense Xing Shun's presence, she would definitely be able to sense Xia Feng's presence. Therefore, she had already hidden herself to the side. Disciple of the Holy Church, die! Xing Shun roared at the sky, and the demonic aura around him shot into the sky, covering the white moon. The terrifying demonic aura spread for thousands of miles, as if telling the entire Cold Moon Immortal Palace that a demon had descended tonight. For some reason, Xia Feng felt that something wasn't quite right. You are a great demon god emperor. Is there a need to make such a big fuss just to kill a 17-year-old boy? Shouldn't you have quietly dealt him a fatal blow, then taken me with you and run? Wouldn't that have been the end of it? This could have been settled in 2 breaths. Why did you have to make such a big fuss, as if you were afraid that others wouldn't know you were a demon? Of course, Xia Feng only dared to say this in his heart. His life was now in the hands of great demon god Xing Shun. If he abandoned him and ran away alone, do you think the people of Cold Moon Immortal Palace would let him go? I'm not with him. I'm really not. Like hell I'll believe you. You're not with him. How did a puny divine general like you get to the peak of Cold Moon Mountain? Are you insulting the intelligence of the experts of Cold Moon Immortal Palace? Xia Feng's feelings were very complicated. He didn't want to take the risk of going up the mountain to kill a demon. However, if he didn't kill Ling Xiao, Xing Shun would kill him. What do you mean by there's no way to get off a tiger? I'm a man of destiny. How did I end up in this situation? I'm with a demon and I have to pretend to be one. Neither the righteous nor the demon could explain this. For example, Xia Feng had no other choice but to be a demon. What's going on? It was as if there was an invisible hand behind him that was wantonly manipulating his fate. However, when he saw the panic and confusion on Ling Zhao's face, the sullen feeling disappeared without a trace. Ha 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 ha, Ling Xiao, so what if I'm a demon? As long as I kill you today, everything will be worth it. Buzz! An ear-piercing buzzing sound resounded through the mountain peak. Xing Shen's figure flashed and appeared in front of Ling Xiao. At this moment, it was unknown whether Ling Xiao was scared out of his wits or was intimidated by the sky demon's light. He stood there in a daze and didn't even try to dodge. That's it. Senior Xing Shen, faster! Faster! 100 feet, 7 feet, 3 feet. But, just as Xing Shen's palm was about to land on Ling Xiao's head, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky. She stretched out her jade-like hand and created a sky full of moonlight, blocking Xing Shen's attack. Boom! A terrifying spiritual power swept out in an instant. Within a radius of 100 feet, the mountain rocks were shattered and the grass and trees were reduced to ashes. The cracks in the space were like waves, stretching for thousands of miles. Xing Shen let out a muffled groan and was instantly sent flying. Blood seemed to be spilling out of his mouth, and the demonic aura around him was extremely weak. At this moment, Xia Feng's face was completely blank. He could see that the figure that suddenly appeared was the person he didn't want to see the most tonight. The second elder of the Cold Palace, his master, Yu Xiao. Chapter 521. You've really disappointed me. Yu Xiao's eyes were clear. Under the moonlight, there seemed to be silver light around her body, making her look like an immortal. At this moment, above her head, there was a bright moon emitting divine light. It was bone-chilling. Background music, start. The white moonlight shines on my face. It's so bright but so cold. Everyone has some secrets that they want to hide, but the more they try, the more they are exposed. Compared to the moonlight, the coldness in Yu Zhao's eyes was even more frightening. Master, it's not like that. Xia Feng's eyes were sad. His body trembled slightly and tears fell from the corners of his eyes. I can't wipe them away. The road is too long. I can't get forgiveness. Beat. The destined child is in despair. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Tell me, are you Feng Yi or Xia Feng? Yu Xiao took a deep breath and tried to make her voice sound calmer. At the same time, in the surrounding forest, countless disciples and elders of the Cold Palace stood in the distance, blocking Xia Feng and Xing Shen's escape route. Master. Xia Feng slowly closed his eyes. He wanted to say something but stopped. In the entire Cold Moon Celestial Palace, the person he didn't want to lie to the most was his master, Yu Xiao. This woman who was cold on the outside but cared for him a lot had been imprinted in Xia Feng's heart. Xia Feng only had respect for her. He didn't have any other thoughts. Yu Xiao was like an elder to him. She was strict, reproachful, and expectant. It was precisely because of such true feelings that Xia Feng's heart, which had been sealed for a long time, was opened. But now, looking at the disappointment in Yu Zhao's eyes, Xia Feng felt so sad that he wanted to die. Master, I'm really not a demon. The person you're protecting is the real demon. But I don't know how to explain it to you. A series of coincidences made Xia Feng a demon that he couldn't get rid of. Maybe, in Master's eyes, I'm the real demon. Suddenly, Xia Feng lowered his head and smiled. His smile was sad. It turned out that there was no justice in this world. Pfft. Endless grievances and frustration finally broke the defense in Xia Feng's heart. He just stood there and spat out blood. It was as if he had forgotten to run away. He was tired and didn't want to run anymore. Beep, Destiny's child of life and death. Congratulations to host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Hearing the system notification, Ling Zhao's lips curled into a playful smile. Tired of playing? Stinky little brother, you can't last long enough. If you're targeted by me, it'll be hard for you to die even if you want to. Ling Xiao discreetly glanced at the forest to the side. After confirming that Yuan Yao had arrived, He gave Xing Shen a look. Xia Feng, let's go. Xing Shen grasped Xia Feng's shoulder and prepared to leave. At this moment, the Cold Moon Palace Master let out a cold snort. She took a step forward, and the spiritual might around her was boundless. Moonlight began to float between heaven and earth. Above the frigid moon celestial mountain, a spiritual array suddenly activated. Boundless moonlight poured down like a Milky Way, enveloping Xing Shen and his companion. Palace Master, listen to me. Sure enough, it was just as Ling Xiao had expected. Yuan Yao's beautiful figure suddenly appeared in front of the Cold Moon Palace Master. She opened her arms and blocked the Cold Moon Palace Master. Princess Yuan Yao, what do you mean by this? The Cold Moon Palace Master frowned slightly, and killing intent swirled in her eyes. To be honest, if not for the frigid moon celestial mountain opening, she would need these western border geniuses to search for opportunities. Especially Yuan Yao, who was the one she thought the most highly. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to resist the urge to slap this princess of Deyuan to death. The first time, Xia Feng fled in a panic. You said that he had his difficulties, and I could understand. But this time, he brought the great demon to the frigid moon celestial palace, and you still want to let him live? But Yuan Yao was known for her kindness in the western border, and she had the power of all living beings. If she killed such a person, how different would she be from the evil demon? The Saint sect was ruthless and heartless, but that was behind the scenes. On the surface, the Saint sect was still the leader of the righteous human race, and their mission was to slay demons and obtain the power of will from all living beings. Therefore, Yuan Yao couldn't be killed. Senior Xing, let's go. Xia Feng sighed. It was inevitable that he would feel heartache. But, if he wanted to clear up this misunderstanding, he had to kill Ling Xiao to verify his demonic body. In short, it was too late to take back the spilled water. He had no way to explain. He could only leave first, bear with it, and work hard to become stronger. Fortunately, Senior Xing's means were heaven-defying, and he was good at teleportation. Since he could pass through the frigid moon celestial palace's protective array quietly, he should be able to escape easily, right? Xia Feng turned his head and saw the bitterness in Xing Shen's eyes. His heart skipped a beat. Don't mess around. What kind of situation is this? Don't tell me that you can come in, but you can't go out, right? Senior Xing, let's go. Cough cough. I tried just now. Maybe it's because I'm injured. I need to recover first before I can bring you out. Xing Shen's tone was serious, and there was an inexplicable panic on his face. It wasn't that he couldn't leave, it was that he didn't want to leave. The show had just begun. If the main character left, who would continue the show? Today, the main thing was to attack Xia Feng. There was another part, which was to show Princess Yuan Yao's benevolence. However, Xia Feng suddenly felt a chill rising from the bottom of his feet. Soon, it reached the top of his head. Princess Yuan Yao, I know that you have a benevolent heart. However, evil demons are vicious. What else is there to say? Could it be that you want to side with evil demons? The frigid moon palace master suppressed her anger and looked at Yuan Yao coldly. The meaning in her words was obvious. If you dare to stop me again, I will label you as a demon. At that time, how will you be any different from a demon? Palace master, you keep saying that demons are vicious. However, today, who did those two hurt and kill? Yuan Yao was unmoved. She felt comforted and encouraged by Big Brother Ling Xiao's eyes. She felt a lot more strength in her heart. Big Brother Xiao, I will remember what you said to me. Compared to the evilness of the secular world, as long as you can understand me, I will not regret it even if I am cursed by others. Hearing that, the surrounding people looked at each other in dismay. It seemed that those two evil demons did not kill anyone today. They did not kill anyone today. However, how do you know that they did not kill anyone on a normal day? If you dare to stop me again, I will capture you as well. The frigid Moon Palace master clenched her teeth and snorted coldly. She stepped forward and rushed toward Xiaofeng and Yuan Yao. What a joke! These evil demons came to her frigid moon, immortal mountain. Although the frigid Moon Palace master did not know how they managed to avoid the sect protecting array, how could ordinary people imagine the methods of evil demons? Once today's matter was spread to the holy sect, she would have to bear the name of being incompetent. Palace Master, how do you know that they killed people on a normal day? Could it be that just because their cultivation method is a little strange, the Palace Lord killed them indiscriminately? Yuan Yao cried out in alarm. She raised her hand and placed it on her head. If Palace Master kills people for no reason today, Yuan Yao will remonstrate with my life. You! Chapter 522. Buzz. The cold Moon Palace master's expression froze. She hesitated in midair. If it was anyone else, she would have killed them. However, Yuan Yao had a lot of connections. Even the disciple of the divine envoy, Lord Ling Xiao, praised her. If she really forced him to death, it would be a huge sin. Thank you for speaking up for justice, Princess Yuan Yao. Xing Shen sneered. He grabbed Xiaofeng's shoulder and was about to escape. At this moment, a ruthless look flashed across Yu Zhao's eyes. No matter what, Xiaofeng was her disciple. Since he was a demon, as his master, she naturally had to clean him up. Xiaofeng, stay! Boom! The moonlight in the sky bloomed like a lotus. In the void, rays of bright white moonlight turned into sharp blades and slashed toward Xiaofeng and Xing Shen. Vast divine power surged, causing countless black cracks to appear in the space. Within 100 miles, turbulence was everywhere. It was like the end of the world. It was obvious that Yu Xiao wanted to kill them with this move. Xiaofeng raised his head and looked at the cold and resentful face in the distance. His lips trembled, but he didn't say anything in the end. Xiaofeng, let's go. Xing Shen shouted coldly. He waved his hand and a palm print appeared out of thin air. It instantly swept up the two western border geniuses who were watching the show and threw them toward Yu Zhao's attack. At the same time, Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed and overflowed with soul light. Xing Shen and Xing Shen disappeared on the spot. Poochie! The two western border geniuses didn't even have the chance to scream before their bodies were pierced by the moonlight. Blood rained down, and the entire cold moon's celestial mountain fell into a dead silence. This was especially true for Yuan Yao. Her beautiful face turned pale, and she almost fell to the ground. How they could have easily escaped, so why did they have to kill people before leaving? Why? Was I really wrong? Humph! Yuan Yao, look at what you've done! The cold Moon Palace master shouted angrily. Even the surrounding disciples and geniuses looked at Yuan Yao with a trace of resentment. Yes, you are benevolent and kind, but you can't do this to demons. My two junior brothers, you died so unjustly. Of course, this kind of resentment was only because of the past. The one who died wasn't me, so there's no need to offend Princess Yuan Yao because of this. Besides, the princess was already crying. She must be feeling terrible. This could be considered a form of punishment. Gradually, the crowd dispersed. The cold Moon Palace master led all the elders to the great hall at the top of the mountain. It was clear that she was going to discuss how to deal with the two evil demons who came and went as they pleased. The cold moon immortal world was about to open. She would not allow any demons to disrupt the plans of the Saint sect. Actually, Palace Lord, you're overthinking things. I won't let this demon mess up the plan. Don't worry. When there was no one left at the peak of the mountain, Yuan Yao stood all alone on the spot. Clear tears slid down from her eyes, and she seemed to be extremely lonely. For the first time in her life, she began to doubt her belief. The equality of all living beings was clearly the principle of the great Tao. But why were two innocent lives lost because of her today? Could it be that I was really wrong? Yao, at the edge of the ancient forest, Chu Tianqing's eyes were filled with sorrow. At this moment, he could feel a trace of loneliness emanating from Yuan Yao. Yao! Don't cry, Brother Tianqing will always stand behind you. How hypocritical are people in this world. When you're in the limelight, they will surround you and flatter you. When you make a mistake, they will leave you without hesitation. Yao, now you should know how good I am. But, just as Chu Tianqing lifted his foot and was about to walk towards Yuan Yao, he suddenly saw a white-robed figure slowly walk over and stand beside Yuan Yao. Damn! It's you again, Ling Xiao. Yao. At this moment, hearing a gentle voice behind her, a trace of surprise flashed across Yuan Yao's originally bewildered face. Brother Xiao, looking at the handsome face that was close to her and the trace of a smile on his face, Yuan Yao could no longer suppress the tears in her eyes. Brother Xiao, was I wrong? Could it be that I was really wrong? It's all because of me that they died. Yao, what nonsense are you talking about? How could they die because of you? Ling Xiao shook his head and reached out to pull Yuan Yao into his embrace. At this moment, how could he not feel Chu Tianqing's aura? But you're a castrate, what are you thinking? Of course, this kind of comforting thing is for me to do. I, Ling Xiao, the light of the righteous path, love and tolerance, and am most willing to give warmth to every girl. As expected, hearing the reproach in Ling Xiao's voice, Yuan Yao was not angry at all. Instead, she felt strangely at ease. It was like a small boat floating on the sea that suddenly found a shore. Damn! They hugged, that adulterous couple hugged. As expected, Elder Dao didn't lie to me. In just one day, their relationship had developed to this extent. Those who didn't know better would think that the person who talked to her every day for 10 years was him, Ling Xiao. I, Chu Tianqing, have loved you for a long time, and we've written letters to each other and talked about everything. But every time I asked you out, you either had a headache or something happened. You always used all kinds of reasons to reject me. I thought that you were shy and reserved, but I didn't expect. You! Poochie! Chu Tianqing's figure trembled. His Dao heart that had healed showed signs of cracking again. Beep, the destined child is jealous, and his Dao heart is unstable. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced out of the forest without a trace. Tianqing, you're very fast. At this speed, you'll probably use up all your luck before you can enter the immortals world. But men are too fast. Oh, it's fine. You're not a man now. Big brother, if I didn't stop Han Yu Palace Master, she might have a way to capture those 2 evil demons. Why do you have to blame me, blame me? Oh. Yuan Yao lay in Ling Xiao's arms and cried softly. Haha, Yao, you're wrong. Those 2 evil demons would definitely die if they fell into Han Yu Palace Master's hands. All living things are equal, so are their lives not lives? Although in the end, those 2 disciples died because of the evil demons, but if Elder Yu Xiao didn't use her killing move and let them go, I think they wouldn't kill so recklessly. Ling Xiao sighed and patted Yuan Yao's shoulder lightly. Yao, you have to give them a chance first. Only then will they have a chance to change their minds. Think about it, they have killed 2 people today, but you have also saved 2 lives. In this way we can call it even. However, if that demon is moved by your kindness and stops killing people in the future, wouldn't you be saving people? This, Yuan Yao was stunned. She raised her head and looked at the young man's gentle face, and her eyes widened. That's right. Big Brother Zhao's words make sense. Why am I so stupid? How can I doubt my own beliefs because of someone else's temporary gaze? Big Brother Xiao with you, Yao will not be confused in the future. Chapter 523. Yao, you are the most beautiful woman in the world. Why do you care about this mortal world? Don't worry. No matter what, I will stand behind you. Ling Xiao smiled playfully and hugged Yuan Yao tightly in his arms. Outside the forest, Chu Tianqing spat out another mouthful of blood. Why do you always steal my lines? I don't have many scenes to begin with. Now I don't even have any lines. However, what he said was so profound. If I am guilty, let the heavens kill me. Why did they send a demon like you to torture me? Yuan Yao, why are you doing this to me? Chu Tianqing closed his eyes. Tears flowed down his cheek. She always left me only her phone number. She told me to contact her more often. But every time I call her. If I didn't run, I would set off outside. F***ck. Thank you, Brother Xiao. I feel much better now. A blush appeared on Yuan Yao's face as she struggled out of Ling Xiao's embrace. She lowered her head shyly. Let's go. It's getting late. It looks like the immortals will open soon. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the golden light pillar behind the cold moon's celestial mountain. Compared to a few days ago, there was a divine shadow in the light pillar. There were many palaces in the ancient forest. However, they looked broken and desolate. Yes, Big Brother Xiao, actually, Yao doesn't care about the immortals anymore. The biggest reward of this trip is meeting Big Brother. Yuan Yao's red lips were tightly pursed, and her face was already flushed red from embarrassment. It was like a ripe cherry, making people want to take a bite out of it. F***ck. You're so flirtatious. You're clearly in love. But why are you running away? The smile on Ling Xiao's face gradually froze as he looked at the golden-clothed figure who was covering her mouth and running towards the palace in the distance. In the next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. In the realm, Ling Xiao looked at Han Qingqiu coldly. Do you know what to do? Don't worry, young master. Han Qingqiu nodded softly. Looking at the jade-white Dan in her hand, her eyes flickered with complexity. Originally, she had only wanted to use Ling Xiao to deal with Han Yu Palace Master and the Holy Sect. But now, for some reason, she felt as if she was completely under the control of this young man. After witnessing Ling Xiao's various methods, Han Qingqiu's reverence for him grew even stronger. Whether it was Chu Tianqing, Yuan Yao, or Xia Feng, these so-called top geniuses of the western border, they were all being toyed with by Ling Xiao alone. Furthermore, Han Qingqiu was confused. With Ling Xiao's strength, he could clearly kill them easily, but why did he have to toy with them time and time again? Could it be that this fellow had some kind of shadow in his heart? Hiss. Are you cold? Ling Xiao frowned and looked at Han Qingqiu. The latter shook her head. Then why are you trembling? Young master, I'll go now. Han Qingqiu fled in panic, heading towards a certain place in the realm. Looking at the fleeing figure, Ling Xiao sneered and disappeared on the spot. In front of the Blood Dragon Hall, 10,000 Blood Dragon guards held battle swords in their hands and trained in an orderly manner. Blood Qi circled around them and gathered in the air. Even if Xiao Beifa wasn't there, with Long De and Long Air around, they didn't dare to slack off. At this moment, above the void, a blood dragon roared towards the sky. The dense blood qi extended for thousands of miles without end. Within a radius of 100 feet, there was complete silence. The spiritual qi and mountain wind had disappeared without a trace. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked up at the ferocious blood dragon and sighed softly in his heart. As expected of the strongest battle strength of the great Qin imperial clan. If this blood dragon was placed on the battlefield, it would definitely be an existence that could wipe out thousands of soldiers. Not to mention divine kings and divine marquises, even a grade 4 or grade 5 divine emperor might not be able to withstand the power of this battle formation. Not to mention, this battle formation was missing a general, Xiao Beifa. Once this general entered the formation and controlled the blood qi, how terrifying would the battle formation's power be? In the end, Ling Xiao didn't disturb them and turned to leave. Now, the 10,000 blood dragon guards were all divine generals and had divine artifact. As long as he came out of the immortals' world, he would probably be able to take over Shijiang. At the same time, in the depths of the realm, Xia Feng looked at Xing Shen with a panicked expression. He wanted to say something but stopped. At this moment, he didn't dare to blame Xing Shen. He was afraid that Xing Shen would be unhappy and kill him again. But what are you unhappy about? If you weren't curious, you would have killed Ling Xiao long ago. Why did you have to run away so pathetically? F***ck. Now, not only did I not kill Ling Xiao, but I also became a demon. Thinking of the way Yu Xiao looked at him, Xia Feng felt unbearable pain in his heart. However, he didn't blame Yu Xiao because this master of his used to care about him. Similarly, Xia Feng also knew that although Yu Xiao looked cold, her character was extremely upright. She had never liked demons. Now that he carried the name of a demon and was on the same side as a demon, how could she not be sad? Moreover, in Xia Feng's opinion, the stronger Yu Xiao's killing intent was, the deeper her love for him. After all, the deeper the love, the more the hatred. Master, don't worry. One day, I will clear my name and prove to you that I am not a demon. Ling Xiao. You can be arrogant, but when the day comes, I will personally tear off your hypocritical mask and reveal the secret of your demon body. Then, you will understand why the world can't tolerate you. Oh, it seems like the world can't tolerate me now? Slap. Just as Xia Feng was muttering to himself with a ferocious expression, Xing Shen suddenly slapped him and woke him up. Damn it! You trash, you can't do anything right but ruin everything. F***ck me. In the end, Xia Feng did not say the word F***ck. At this moment, Xing Shen was obviously anxious. He still hoped that Xia Feng could use his spatial divine power to bring him into the immortals' world. If Xing Shen was angered, Xia Feng would have no hope of turning the tables. F***ck. Xing Shen was obviously stunned. Then, he slapped Xia Feng hard in the face. F***ck. I've lived for so long, but this is the first time I've heard such an unreasonable request. Pucci. With Xia Feng's strength as a 5th-grade divine general, how could he withstand Xing Shen's slap? He was immediately sent flying 10 feet away. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. You should be a human. However, he still did not dare to complain. He even had a gentle smile on his face. Senior Xing Shen, are you feeling better now? Humph. If you didn't make a sound and alert Lord Ling Xiao, I wouldn't have been surrounded by those B***cheese from Cold Moon Celestial Palace. Xing Shen snorted. Xia Feng hesitated for a moment and bowed deeply. Senior, you are right. It's my first time, so I was a little nervous. In fact, Xia Feng was also confused. He really didn't move. He didn't release any spiritual energy either. However, Ling Xiao had sensed it. Wasn't it strange? Great. We've missed the best opportunity. Cold Moon Celestial Palace will definitely be on guard. It'll be harder to kill him now. Xing Shen took a deep breath. His expression was somewhat desolate. Senior, we can slowly kill Ling Xiao. Now that the ruins are about to open, do you think you can? You're dreaming. If I go to Cold Moon Celestial Mountain again, do you think I'll wait for Ren Yuang to kill me? Before Xia Feng could finish his words, Xing Shen interrupted him with a cold snort. F***ck. You didn't say that before, right? Didn't you say that you could come and go as you please and that you were the most powerful person in this world? All of a sudden, Xia Feng panicked. Chapter 524. Say, Senior, didn't you promise me? Xia Feng was at a loss and his eyes were filled with panic. Although the current situation had already exceeded his expectations, but the Cold Moon Immortals was the key to his rise. If he missed this opportunity, it would be difficult for him to get rid of his demonic reputation. Sigh. Given your current situation, it's impossible for you to join the Immortals. Xing Shen sighed with a look of disappointment on his face. It's not that I don't want to help you. The Cold Moon Immortal Palace's protective array was not fully activated. Now that we've exposed ourselves, I'm sure the Cold Moon Immortal Palace's palace master will fully activate the array to prevent any accidents. Unless what? Xia Feng's dim eyes suddenly brightened. Damn. I knew it. With so many things going on, there must be a turning point. Unless there's an elder in the Cold Moon Celestial Palace waiting for you and secretly opening the Grand Formation, only then would I be able to send you in. However, you've already been exposed. Even if you enter the Cold Moon Celestial Mountain, won't you be courting death? Xing Shen snorted and looked at Xia Feng with disdain. The hope that had just risen in Xia Feng's heart was extinguished again. Secretly opening the array? The Cold Moon Immortal Palace was the leader of the Western Border's righteous path. It had always been their responsibility to slay demons. Not to mention opening the array and secretly letting him in. If an elder saw him, they would immediately kill him. Am I really going to be a demon for the rest of my life? Wait here first. I'll go to the Cold Moon Immortal Palace to investigate. This place is not far from the Immortal Mountain. Don't move around casually. Xing Shen suddenly turned around and was about to leave. However, before he could take 2 steps, he seemed to have thought of something. He waved his hand and a pitch-black demonic light descended from the sky, covering Xia Feng and the ancient forest. This array can cover your track. As long as you stay in it, even the God Emperor won't be able to detect you. Xia Feng's eyes trembled. In the end, he did not dare to ask and let Xing Shen's figure disappear into the distance. Then, he raised his head and looked at the demonic light in the sky above the ancient forest. He swallowed hard. Cover your tracks? Based on the demonic chi fluctuation that I can see with my naked eyes, you're not purposely asking me to attract everyone's attention so that you can take the opportunity to escape, right? For a moment, Xia Feng really wanted to escape from this place. However, whether or not he could enter the Immortals now depended entirely on this great demon. If he offended him, Xia Feng would have no hope left. However, even so, Xia Feng still took out a wind-riding spiritual talisman from his cosmos bag and put on 2 layers of spiritual armor, ready to flee for his life. Buzz! Suddenly, a buzzing sound came from the distant horizon. Xia Feng was so frightened that his eyelids trembled, and he almost immediately used the talisman to escape. However, when he saw the beautiful figure descending from the sky, a gentle look suddenly appeared in his eyes. Han Qing Qiu. Today, he did not see any trace of the goddess on the mountain peak. Who would have thought that he would coincidentally run into her while hiding here? What was this called? This was called a meeting brought together by fate. Suddenly, a crazy thought appeared in Xia Feng's mind. Originally, with his character, he would never do anything risky. However, the Cold Moon Immortal Legacy was too important, he could not miss it. Moreover, Han Qing Qiu had been seduced by Ling Xiao. Once she enters the immortal world, she will lose both her body and her life. Xia Feng would not allow it. He would not allow himself to watch his Qiu fall into the tiger's mouth like this. Now the opportunity seemed to have come. As the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. Moreover, although Han Qing Qiu was strong, she was not strong enough to kill Xia Feng. Therefore, he dared to take a gamble on her. Even so, Xia Feng was not in a hurry. He stood where he was and watched the beautiful figure from afar. He first wanted to make sure that Han Qing Qiu was alone. He also wanted to make sure that the array set up by Xing Shen was useful. Until Han Qing Qiu was 10 feet away from him, her beautiful face was still calm, as if she did not notice the turbulent demonic aura in the ancient forest. Xia Feng stretched out his hand and waved it at Han Qing Qiu. However, the latter still turned a deaf ear and ignored him. It seems that I am overthinking. Although Xing Shen is a great demon, he is still very good to me. Buzz. Accompanied by a buzzing sound, a spiritual light suddenly shot up from Xia Feng's body. Then, He took a step forward and appeared outside the ancient forest. The calm expression on Han Qingqiu's face disappeared and turned into a look of shock. Xia Feng, how dare you appear at the foot of Frigid Moon Celestial Mountain? This is really the foot of a celestial mountain. Senior Xingchen, I have wronged you. Hearing this, a look of guilt flashed across Xia Feng's face. Qingqiu, this is not the place to talk. Come with me. Don't worry, I will not hurt you. I have a big secret to tell you. After that, I will let you do whatever you want to me. Since he had decided to take a gamble, Xia Feng had completely let go of his worries. I have been hiding for so long. This time, I will take a gamble. Hurt me? Han Qingqiu looked at him with disdain. You think too much. In this realm, Master can kill you with a flick of his finger. Do you really think that you are the great Prince Xia? If you have something to say, you better say it now. Otherwise, I am afraid you will not have the chance later. Qingqiu, Senior Xingchen could come back at any time. He hates righteous disciples like you the most. If he sees you, I am afraid. Halfway through his sentence, Xia Feng suddenly froze. The way I am speaking right now, it is as if I am a demon. I have been assimilated so quickly? As expected, killing intent flashed across Han Qingqiu's face. The moonlight in her hand shone brightly and the cold sword in her hand shone brightly. Qingqiu. Ling Xiao is a demon. Ling Xiao is the real demon. Just as the young girl raised her foot and was about to rush towards Xia Feng, a wisp of resentment finally surged onto his face as he roared loudly. Oh! But, to Xia Feng's surprise, Han Qingqiu's face did not reveal any fear. Instead, she looked at him with a puzzled expression. Gulp. It is quite sudden. Xia Feng's heart was filled with uneasiness. It can't be right? Didn't you hate demons the most in your previous life? You even said that you would kill all those pretentious demons in the world. Why are you not reacting at all? Could it be that my Qingqiu has been assimilated as well? How did you know? Then, just as Xia Feng tightened his grip on the talisman and was about to flee, something even more surprising happened. Han Qingqiu suddenly put away her ancient sword and looked at him with a serious expression. What is the meaning of this? Wait. Could it be that Qingqiu already knew that Ling Xiao was a demon? Was her intimacy from before all an act? Was it just to lower the demon's guard? My Qiu. You are smart, wise, calm and calm. Chapter 525. Qingqiu, let's go somewhere else. The wariness on Xia Feng's face disappeared and his lips curled into a warm smile. The memories of the previous life could not lie. No matter how much the plot had changed, it was hard to change a person's temperament. Han Qingqiu, the goddess of the immortal palace, hated demons beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. Even though Xia Feng did not know what kind of secret she was hiding. But now, it seemed that she was only close to Ling Xiao on the surface because she had ulterior motive. Otherwise, she would not be so calm right now. She would not have accepted the secret that Ling Xiao was a demon so easily. All right. This time, Han Qingqiu did not refuse. Xia Feng's face finally bloomed into a radiant smile when he saw the white-clothed figure dashing into the distance. She believes me. Life was really full of ups and downs, but there was always a glimmer of hope. Is this what it means to come back from the jaws of death? As long as Han Qingqiu believes in me, I don't care if the whole world misunderstands me. More importantly, if Han Qingqiu is willing to help me, I will have a chance to enter the Cold Moon Fairyland. Even though she was not an elder of the Immortal Palace, her status as the successor of the Immortal Palace was no less than an elder. When the two of them were 100 miles away, Han Qingqiu stopped and turned to Xia Feng. Can you tell me now? Qingqiu, there are some things that I cannot tell you now. But I swear on my Taoist heart that I am not a demon. Ling Xiao is a demon. His reputation and temperament are all fake. I originally wanted to enter the cold moon fairyland and kill him with my own hands. If I lied to you, let me be struck by lightning and shatter my body and soul. Boom! Just as Xia Feng's voice fell, the originally clear sky was suddenly filled with dark clouds. A bolt of silver-white divine lightning fell from the sky and struck Xia Feng's head without deviating from its target. Poochie! In an instant, Xia Feng's armor was shattered. All the hair on his body stood on end and even his skin turned black. However, the power of the divine lightning was truly just right. It only hurt his skin and flesh. Even his bones were not damaged, let alone his meridians and dantian. F***ck. This shouldn't be the case. What I said just now was the truth. How could I be struck by lightning? Could it be that I've been too cocky? To be honest, with Xia Feng's strength, when he said that he would enter the immortal world to kill Ling Xiao, it was indeed somewhat pretentious. But, Qingqiu, listen to me, he is indeed a demon. I already knew that. However, it seems that you are not a good person either. Han Qingqiu snorted coldly as her eyebrows furrowed. But it doesn't matter. I don't care who you are. Since you know that he is a demon, why don't we work together? Cooperation? Xia Feng narrowed his eyes and nodded. That's right. Work together. Of course, what he wanted wasn't cooperation, but Han Qingqiu's sincerity. However, with his current demonic reputation, it would be difficult to even get close to him, much less win the hearts of fairies. The cooperation was just the beginning. He would do his best to prove that he, Xia Feng, was the true destiny. Only he was worthy of the purest moonlight of the cold moon immortal palace. With Ling Zhao's current strength and status, if we recklessly accuse him of being a demon, I'm afraid no one will believe us. Instead, it will bring us a fatal disaster. Moreover, I have a faint feeling that he is hiding his cultivation. Han Qingqiu's tone was solemn. Her beautiful face gradually revealed a trace of killing intent. Qingqiu. You mean, slap? Without waiting for Xia Feng to finish his words, Han Qingqiu slapped his face. Xia Feng, you better know your own identity. Xia Feng's eyes were filled with bitterness. He nodded slightly. I was rude. Han Xianzi, you mean, the cold moon immortal world can suppress one's cultivation. Since Ling Xiao was accepted as a disciple by the divine envoy of the holy sect, his means must be terrifying. So, I want to gain his trust first. After entering the secret realm, I will find a chance to make a move on him. Han Qingqiu's eyes were cold. Her beautiful face revealed a trace of killing intent. That's right. Once we enter the ruins, our cultivation will be at the divine general realm. So what if he has many tricks up his sleeve? As long as I can. Cough cough, as long as we join hands, killing him will be as easy as flipping our palms. Xia Feng's lips curled into a smile. His eyes were filled with inexplicable confidence. Han Xianzi, but I have to enter the immortal world first. Humph. That great demon's means are brilliant. He can shift space. Are you afraid that you can't enter the cold moon immortal world? Han Qingqiu's eyes were filled with doubt. However, Xia Feng's face flashed with an awkward smile. Han Xianzi, Senior Xingxin said that the Immortal Palace's protective array is not fully activated today. I'm afraid that after this incident, the Immortal Palace's protective array is controlled by the Palace Master himself. If that great demon can't enter, Han Qingqiu frowned slightly. She seemed to be in a difficult position. I know, Han Xianzi. As long as you can bring me into the secret realm, I will help you find the fortune inside. Xia Feng's eyes were burning. How could he not know the risks of opening the protective array without permission and letting the demon in? Once this action was exposed, Han Qingqiu would be labeled as an accomplice of the demon. At that time, this Han Xianzi would be cruelly killed. I will try my best. But your current appearance is too obvious. Here is an appearance-changing pill and a sound-transmitting talisman. When the immortal world opens, I will inform you." Han Qingqiu snorted coldly. She handed the pill and talisman over to Xia Feng and turned to leave. Han Xianzi, Xia Feng clenched his fists. A trace of tears appeared in his eyes. Too thoughtful, Qingqiu was really too thoughtful. Most importantly, you are willing to take such a big risk for me. Qingqiu, don't worry. As long as I can enter the secret realm, not only will I help you kill Ling Xiao, but I will also give you a great fortune. Is there anything else? Han Qingqiu stopped and turned to look at Xia Feng. Her face was as cold as ever. Thank you for your trust in me. From the beginning to the end, Xia Feng did not ask Han Qingqiu how she knew about Ling Xiao's secret. Everyone has their own secret. Just like him. Even though he loved Han Qingqiu deeply for 2 lifetimes, he still did not dare to tell her the secret of his rebirth. But fortunately, this is a good beginning. After all, the 2 of them have crossed paths now. The rest of the story will be left to time. Thinking of this, Xia Feng's smile became more gentle. That affectionate look made Han Qingqiu have goosebumps. Silly boy. Han Qingqiu snorted coldly and disappeared. Until her figure was far away, Xia Feng was still standing in the same place, looking at the sky in a daze. Although the things that happened in the past 2 months made him anxious and fearful. But fortunately, the ending was good. From the moment Han Qingqiu appeared, he knew that his immortal path was about to be on the right track. Ling Xiao, wait for me. In this life, I will destroy your reputation and destroy your soul. You will not be tolerated by the heavens and you will not enter the reincarnation cycle. I don't know what to say. Slap. Just as Xia Feng's expression was cold and arrogant, a sharp pain came from the back of his head. F***CK? Chapter 526. Bang. Xia Feng staggered. His face hit the ground and he was sent flying several meters away. No way. Why is it that every time I try to act tough or even have the thought of acting tough, something happens? Didn't I tell you to hide in the array and not to leave? Xing Shen walked out of the void and stood at the edge of the ancient forest. He looked at Xia Feng coldly. Say, Senior. Xia Feng got up from the ground. His face was badly mutilated. However, at this moment, he didn't dare to reveal a trace of anger. After all, Senior Xing Shen's anger was justified. He was worried that he would be killed by the righteous faction if his whereabouts were exposed. This was a slap of love. Especially after Han Qingqiu's confirmation, Xia Feng no longer doubted Xing Shen. This great demon who was cruel and ruthless in the eyes of the world, really cared about him. Suddenly, Xia Feng felt a tinge of guilt in his heart. The array of Cold Moon Celestial Palace is fully activated. You have no chance. Now, leave the western border with me and return to Xing Yuan Mountain. After saying that, Xing Shen waved his hand. Sky Demon Qi rolled up and was about to leave with Xia Feng. Senior. Wait. You don't want to leave with me? Xing Shen's eyes flashed. Xia Feng smiled bitterly and shook his head. No. Senior, I just met Han Qingqiu from Cold Moon Celestial Palace. Han Qingqiu? The successor of Cold Palace? You? Xing Shen's eyes became more alert. Xia Feng was stunned. Only now did he realize that he could not explain to Xing Shen why Han Qingqiu helped him. She was willing to cooperate because she knew that Ling Xiao was a great demon. She wanted to enter the immortal world and kill him. However, Xing Shen was willing to help him because he thought that he was a great demon. If he found out that he was not a great demon, the consequences would be, isn't it confusing? To put it simply, if Xing Shen knew that Ling Xiao was the great demon, he would not hesitate to kill him. Damn. How should I explain my relationship with Han Qingqiu without making it sound fake? I'm panicking. Hee, there's something you don't know, senior. Grief suddenly appeared on Xiaofeng's face. He looked up at the sky, and a tear seemed to fall from the corner of his eye. Before I was exposed, Qingqiu had always been pursuing me. However, the path of righteous Tao and devil Tao is different. I was afraid that I would succumb to worldly feelings. I was also afraid that one day, we would turn against each other and become enemies. That would only increase my sorrow. Therefore, I cruelly rejected her. I didn't expect that after she found out about my identity as a devil Tao, she still didn't abandon me. She even took the initiative to send me medicinal pills and spirit talismans. As he said those words, Xiaofeng took out an appearance-changing pellet and a voice transmission talisman. Thus, I've decided to accept her and try my best to pull her into our camp. The corners of Xing Shen's eyes twitched. Who asked you to pretend? Fortunately, His Majesty isn't here. Otherwise, I'm afraid you would have died on the spot. So, Han Qingqiu is willing to be your spy and help you open the Immortal Palace array? Of course, no matter how pretentious Xiaofeng was, it had nothing to do with him. As long as it didn't delay his lord's plan, it would be fine. That's right. So, I'll have to trouble Senior to send me to the Cold Moon Immortal Mountain on that day. Aren't you afraid that she's deliberately luring you into a trap? Xing Shen sneered. Xiaofeng shook his head slightly. Although he was a coward, he still trusted Han Qingqiu. Otherwise, half a day's time would be enough for her to summon the experts of the Immortal Palace to kill him. Senior, you don't understand. Since you've given your love to a person, you should trust her without any regret. Xiaofeng's face was solemn. However, there was an indescribable satisfaction in his heart. Although he was nothing in Han Qingqiu's eyes. But this feeling of being pretentious was really delightful. At the very least, in Xing Shen's eyes, he and Han Qingqiu were a Taoist couple made in heaven. This was the greatest pleasure of a bootlicker. As long as he closed his eyes, the goddess would be his. No, the entire world would be his. All right. Since you've decided, I'll send you to the Cold Moon Immortal Mountain when the time comes. As for whether it's a fortune or a trap, it'll depend on your fate. Xing Shen did not say anything else. He turned around and walked into the ancient forest. At the same time, in the heavenly palace, Ling Xiao sat in front of the table and sipped the tea in his cup. Beside him, Han Qingqiu stood quietly and did not say a word. Is it done? Don't worry, young master. Xiaofeng has taken the bait. Han Qingqiu's face was cold as she replied respectfully. Oh, you said to Xiaofeng that you want to kill me. That's true, right? Ling Xiao put down his teacup and looked at Han Qingqiu with a playful smile. It was quite sudden. Han Qingqiu's beautiful eyes narrowed. But in the end, she shook her head. You're the only one I can rely on. No matter if you're an immortal or a demon, as long as you can avenge me, my life is yours. To be honest, Han Qingqiu did not really like Ling Xiao. It was more like she was afraid of him. This young man in front of her dared to kill the divine messenger of the saint sect. Who else in the Xingzhou would be in his eyes? Though Ling Xiao erased part of her memory, he only erased the part about the sky demon. Even the spiritual engraving that Ling Xiao placed did not seem to have much of an effect. It was obvious that the hatred in Han Qingqiu's heart was extremely strong. It was strong enough to make her give up her life and emotions. Of course, Ling Xiao could understand this. After all, to make this woman give up her real body and turn into a human, her obsession was terrifying. I am very happy that you think this way. How should I reward you? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with evilness. Before Han Qingqiu could react, he grabbed her hand and pulled her into his embrace. Ugh! Just as Han Qingqiu was about to struggle, she saw that devilishly handsome face suddenly leaning over and fiercely pressing onto her lips. Buzz! Spiritual light flashed and wrapped around the two of them. Only faintly one could hear the sounds of panic and suppression. Gradually, the temperature of the entire hall began to rise, and the panic in the young girl's voice turned into weak pleas for mercy. Ling Xiao, you bastard! You've learned your lesson. In the corner of the palace, Feng Ling and Ning stood behind a stone pillar. They hid their presence and looked at the shaking spiritual light. Their eyes flashed with hatred. Little ancestor, what are brother Ling Xiao and sister Han doing? Ning was confused. Feng Ling sneered, they're fighting. But it's a very interesting way of fighting. I used to watch it a lot. A very interesting way of fighting? Then, how do they fight? Ning did not understand. The confusion in her eyes deepened. You won't understand even if I tell you. When we have the chance, I will show you personally. Feng Ling glared hatefully at Ling Mu, then walked out of the hall with Ning. When night fell, all was silent. Ling Xiao walked out of the palace in his starry robe and looked down at the realm below him. Behind him, Han Qingqiu's face was flushed red. She looked a little resentful. Young master, if there's nothing else, I will go back first. Wait. Ling Xiao reached out and took out a cosmos pouch. There are some dawn and treasures inside. The immortal world is about to open. There must be danger. You should prepare yourself. Chapter 527. This, Han Qingqiu hesitated for a moment before keeping the Qiankuan pouch. She bowed slightly and left. She was afraid of Ling Xiao. She had something to ask of him. But at the same time, she was also extremely wary of this evil young master who played with the world. She was afraid that before she could get her revenge, she would be killed by Ling Xiao. With the latter's means, let alone her, all the geniuses in the western border would be in his hands. Even Yuan Yao, the peerless genius who relied on the wishes of all living beings and was regarded by many god-emperors as a peerless god-emperor, was touched by Ling Xiao and threw herself into his arms. Although Han Qingqiu did not know what Ling Xiao was planning to do, but instinctively she felt that the princess of Deyuan would have a miserable end. So, Han Qingqiu's guard-up was real. Her fear of Ling Xiao was also real. She might not betray him easily, but she would not submit to him easily. Only when the beautiful figure in white disappeared did the expression on Ling Xiao's face turn completely serious. In his eyes, this fairy of the cold palace was far more important than Yuan Yao or Xia Feng. Not only did she have luck, she also had a heaven-defying secret. But looking at her, she seemed to be very cautious of him. What should I do? Ling Xiao originally thought that she would fall in love with him after a long time. But now, it seemed that this girl's obsession was too strong. Although the spiritual engraving could ensure that she would not betray him, it was not enough to make her submit completely. Looks like I have to think of a way to move this fairy of the cold palace. System, add a point to the Xiantian ancient scripture. In the end, Ling Xiao did not think too much about it. After all, the immortal world had opened. They would have plenty of time to be alone. Han Qingqiu's guard came from her fear of Ling Xiao. But, stinky sister, I like to set up traps and kill people. But you are different. My love for you is genuine. After all, the smell on your body is really not bad. The secret to becoming an immortal? Haha, I don't know if I can become an immortal or not. But perhaps this Han Qingqiu is the only chance for me to take that step in Xingzhou. Buzz. An ear-piercing buzzing sound instantly resounded. Spiritual light suddenly shot up from Ling Xiao's body into the sky. Above his head, two celestial figures sat cross-legged, creating countless strange phenomena. His cultivation level had reached the 7th level of the divine overlord realm. Although everyone's cultivation would be suppressed to the divine champion level in the immortal world. However, to Ling Xiao, these so-called geniuses of the western border were naturally nothing. However, inexplicably, the words that Yi Qingchan had said after she had devoured that remnant soul kept lingering in Ling Xiao's mind. The Xingzhou continent was in fact a prison. Among all the secret realms in the eastern border, the one in the Taishan sect was the most mysterious, and there was indeed a pair of demon gods' eyes sealed within. It was just that the person guarding the seal wasn't from the saint sect, but an old subordinate of the sky demon. Moreover, there were experts in the lower world of the Xingzhou continent who used their cultivation as a seal to suppress the sky demon's blade. Although the western border was ruled by the dynasty, there were endless disputes. However, the Cold Moon Celestial Palace was stationed here to guard the biggest immortal miracle. Putting aside the secret of becoming an immortal, it was said that less than 1 in 10 people who entered the immortal miracle to search for treasures could come out alive. The danger inside was definitely not as simple as it seemed. In other words, was there another opportunity related to the sky demon? Ling Xiao looked at the blood moon above his head with a serious expression. If his guess was right, why was the identity of the Saint Sect's divine master wrong? If he was from the upper world and was in charge of guarding this place, why would he hunt down geniuses? What kind of secret was hidden in this? An inexplicable uneasiness quietly rose in Ling Xiao's heart. With his strength, he could be said to be invincible among his peers. However, he still had to be careful in front of the Saint Sect. After all, no matter what the Saint Sect's divine master wanted to do, he was definitely invincible in this world. This could be confirmed from the knife demon's memory. Buzz! With this thought in mind, Ling Xiao's figure suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in his soul sea. A great Wei cauldron stood in front of him, and the screams coming from it were especially ear-piercing. Lord Divine Envoy, how does the spiritual fire taste? Ling Xiao smiled faintly. In the great Wei cauldron, the divine envoy of the Saint Sect suddenly cursed, "Sky Demon's successor, you will regret it sooner or later. No matter how long you hide, you are still no match for the divine master. When the time comes, you are indeed the leader of the Xingzhou's righteous path. Your perseverance is really moving." Ling Xiao snorted coldly and waved his hand. The spiritual fire under the cauldron instantly burned brightly. A terrifying wave of heat instantly spread out, and the divine envoy's screams became even more shrill. "Ah! Kill me if you can. Otherwise, the divine master will find out about the changes in the western border sooner or later. When the time comes, I will see how you will hide." Now that you mention it, you reminded me of something. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a sinister smile, and his eyes flashed. "However, Lord Divine Envoy, do you really think that I don't have any helpers in the western border?" In the great Wei cauldron, the divine envoy's eyes narrowed, and a chill suddenly appeared in his heart. Yes. This demon was so arrogant that he could command the great Xia dynasty's god-emperor and great Zhou's war god. It was impossible that he did not have any helpers. After all, if sect master Taishuan's divine soul did not descend, how could a mere divine lord be his match? However, in the entire western border, who had the means to make the emperor of a dynasty bow down? Inexplicably, he thought of someone. In other words, in the entire western border, only she had such power and means. Han Yu Palace Master, Ren Yueying. Although she was from the Saint Sect, she was not in an important position. She was a 7th-grade divine emperor, only 1 grade lower than him, but she did not have any special honor. She was not even an elder of the Saint Sect. She had been stationed at the western border for 100 years. Although she had a mission, she did not contribute much and was scolded by the Divine Lord. Could it be that it was really her? She had joined the Sky Demon? Everything seemed to make sense. No wonder this woman would send a disciple to follow him to find Yi Qingchan's whereabouts. Her purpose was not only to help the Saint Sect kill the enemy, but more likely to spy on him. Now that he thought about it, the disciple of the Sky Demon was able to detect his aura when she was only a divine lord. It was thought-provoking. Ren Yueying, you must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. You actually dared to join forces with the Sky Demon to fight against the Saint's sect. No, he had to think of a way to report this to the Divine Lord. Otherwise, the Saint's sect would be corroded from the inside by the disciple of the Sky Demon. Seeing that the divine envoy of the Saint's sect was deep in thought, Ling Zhao's eyes became even more sinister. Imagination was a good thing. He wanted to let nature take its course and kill the divine envoy. He also wanted to take the opportunity to uproot Han Yu Palace. With his current strength, it was not impossible, but there were many risks. In this case, could he let these two dogs bite each other? It would be best if both sides were injured and he could be the fisherman who reaped the benefits. Chapter 528. Now, the divine messenger of the holy sect must have started to connect the dot. What Ling Xiao wanted to do was to create an opportunity for him to see Ren Yueying's respect for him. In this way, seeing was believing. Only then could people believe. Cold Moon Palace Master, I didn't expect you to betray me. As for the change in the western border, Ling Xiao originally wanted to destroy the Cold Moon Celestial Palace and kill the Divine Messenger. Then, he would spread the demonic traces to confuse the holy sect. However, now that he thought about it, if the Divine Messenger died here and the Cold Moon Celestial Palace was destroyed, the holy sect would be furious. At that time, Qin Wushuang and the others would be in trouble. Of course, Ling Xiao didn't care about their life and death. If the Divine Master took control of the western border, wouldn't it be a waste of effort? Therefore, someone must take the blame for the death of the Divine Messenger and the destruction of the Cold Palace. Moreover, this person must be a famous expert in the western border who had the strength to do all this. What? In the entire western border, the strongest person in the imperial court was only a 6th-grade divine emperor. How could he kill an 8th-grade divine emperor? It's okay. If he doesn't have enough cultivation, he can make up for it with evil skills. I think the dark Inyama scripture that Gui Wushuang cultivated is pretty good. At that time, the demons will help to conquer the western border and the experts of the holy sect will come and kill him. Without wasting a single soldier, without being in the limelight, the western border will be under his control. Wonderful! I, Ling Xiao, am quick-witted, talented, mighty, and majestic. Wushuang, no need to thank me. With this thought, Ling Xiao suddenly stepped out of the boundary and walked towards the peak of the Cold Moon Mountain. At the same time, the two spiritual fires in his sea of soul suddenly burned brightly. The divine messenger of the holy sect instantly screamed. However, a crack suddenly appeared on the cauldron. Crack! The divine messenger's soul trembled. He endured the pain and looked down to see the black crack on the cauldron. His eyes narrowed. Ha 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 ha. Ling Xiao. What should I say? You want to torture me, but you never thought that this cauldron would not be able to withstand the might of two spiritual fire, right? As long as the cauldron was broken, the seal would definitely collapse. At that time, even if he lost his physical body, he could still kill Ling Xiao with a wave of his hand. At this moment, the divine envoy wished he could take off his pants and burn the place where the cauldron was shattered. As such, it would definitely collapse even faster. But what can I do? My physical body is already shattered. How can I urinate? Is the palace lord here? Ling Xiao appeared in the main hall of Mount Han, standing in front of the hall and softly chuckling. At this moment, he could sense that the might of the ancient array enveloping Mount Han was becoming increasingly terrifying. It was even scarier than the one from the Cloudy Millet Immortal sect. Even a rank 8 divine emperor wouldn't be able to break it in a short period of time, let alone a rank 5 divine emperor like Xingxin. What? Do you really think I would ask Han Qingqiu to destroy the array? Brother, the realm moves with me. As long as I am in the array, the realm will naturally be in the array as well. At that time, as long as I secretly release Xia Feng, who will notice? When Xia Feng feels the might of the array, Do you think he will be moved by Han Qingqiu's heroic act of sacrificing herself to help him? Qingqiu, you are righteous, upright, and beautiful, as expected of the true love of my life. At that time, the destined child will completely trust me. How I want to play with him will be up to my Ling Xiao's mood. Little Lord Ling Xiao. The Cold Moon Palace Master's figure instantly appeared in front of the hall, looking very respectful. Yes, she was a rank 7 divine emperor, but she wasn't in an important position in the Holy Church. Now, she had been in the desolate western border for 100 years, but she still hadn't completed the Divine Master's task. Therefore, Ren Yueying felt somewhat uncertain. If she couldn't find the secret to becoming an immortal in this lifetime, would the Divine Master never transfer her back to the central border sacred ground? To be honest, although Ren Yueying was hesitant, she didn't have the slightest intention to rebel. She had seen the Divine Master's strength with her own eyes. In the Xingzhou Great Land, there was only one kind of person who dared to betray the Divine Master. The human realm wasn't worth it. She only hoped that in this chaotic world where monstrous geniuses were everywhere, she could borrow their hands to find the fortune. After completing the task, she would return to the central border. At that time, her path to becoming an immortal would definitely skyrocket. At the very least, even if she could become an elder of the Holy Church, it would be better than living in this remote mountain. The central border, where the Xingzhou Great Land was located. Why were there so many experts in the central border, and why were the geniuses so strong? It was because that was where the heavenly Tao was located, where the immortals lived. Senior, you are a rank 7 divine emperor. Calling me Lord is too much for me. If Palace Master doesn't mind, you can just call me Young Master. Ling Xiao's smile was gentle, without a trace of arrogance. This made the Cold Moon Palace Master's gaze become even gentler. At the same time, she sighed inwardly. This young man is not simple. At such a young age, he is neither arrogant nor rash. His actions are upright and righteous. In the future, he will definitely be the backbone of the Holy Church. As the saying goes, if you respect me, I will respect you tenfold. Since he is the disciple of the Divine Envoy, when the Divine Envoy returns to the central border, he will definitely bring him along. If I don't suck up to him now, when will I? Haha, Lord Ling Xiao is broad-minded and upright. You are indeed the role model of the heavenly pride of the western border. The Cold Moon Palace Master nodded and smiled. May I know why Young Master has suddenly come? There is indeed one thing that I need to trouble Palace Master. Ling Xiao smiled gently and walked into the hall. Young Master, you must be joking. It is Yueying's honor to be able to work for Young Master. The two walked into the hall side by side. At this moment, on the long table in front of the hall, there was a jade cup and an incense burner. Palace Master, you also like to drink tea? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and asked casually. The Cold Moon Palace Master immediately understood. It seems that Young Master is also a person of this path. Young Master, please wait for a moment. I will brew a pot of Cold Moon Immortal Tea, which is unique to our Cold Moon Immortal Palace. Thank you, Palace Master. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. There seemed to be joy in his eyes. At the same time, the crack on the cauldron in his soul suddenly shattered. The divine envoy of the Holy Church was overjoyed. However, just as he took a step forward and was about to leave this place, the spiritual fire outside the cauldron suddenly surged and blocked his figure. At this moment, the divine envoy of the Holy Church's physical body was destroyed and his divine soul was restrained. He did not have any 8th rank heavenly emperor's might. How could he resist the power of 2 spiritual fires? Don't forget that this was Ling Xiao's soul sea. It was guarded by the ancient Pangu stone. How could a god-emperor be so presumptuous? However, as the seal cracked, he was able to send out a wisp of his divine consciousness. If he had the opportunity to come into contact with this western border expert, He might be able to expose Ling Zhao's identity and win a chance of survival. Ah! His divine consciousness broke through the seal and was burned to ashes by the spiritual fire. Even with the temperament of the Holy Church's divine consciousness, a trace of despair appeared in his heart. However, this might be his only chance. If he missed it, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Of course, all of this was part of Ling Zhao's plan. Since it was part of his plan, he could not let this divine envoy succeed so easily. Otherwise, with his experience, he would definitely have doubts. First, he would make him suffer and despair. Then, he would finally break through the seal and send out his divine consciousness. And then, Cold Moon Palace Master, you are indeed colluding with the demon. He felt even more despair. Chapter 529. Young Master, please wait for a moment. The Cold Moon Palace Master took out a furnace and a green stove from her Qiankuan bag. Then, she personally burned incense and brewed tea for Ling Zhao using her status as the Palace Master. Buzz! In Ling Zhao's soul sea, the divine envoy of the sacred sect finally sent out a strand of divine consciousness from the cauldron. Feeling the fluctuation, Ling Zhao's lips curled into a smile. He suppressed the power of the ancient Pangu stone and allowed it to flow on the great Tao of freedom. Young Master, the tea is ready. Please have a taste. The Cold Moon Palace Master picked up the teapot and knelt beside Ling Zhao, filling the jade cup in front of him. In his soul sea, the smile on the face of the divine envoy of the sacred sect instantly froze. Did I really guess it correctly? Did Ren Yueying really side with the sky demon? Suddenly, the face of the divine envoy of the sacred sect was filled with resentment. I knew it. Apart from Ren Yueying, who else in the Western Border could command the sovereign lord of the Western Border dynasty? This woman pretended to be a member of the sacred sect and had the backing of a big tree. However, she used this identity to work for the sky demon? When he thought about it this way, everything seemed to make sense. God emperors bowed their heads and battle gods revered him. Just because he was a divine overlord? Moreover, if Ren Yueying didn't side with the sky demon, why would she bow down to this young man with the might of a 7th-grade divine emperor? Just because he was handsome? She even knelt down? I, Partridge Gully, am the 4th divine envoy of the sacred sect, an 8th-grade divine emperor, revered by tens of thousands of people. But when I came to the Western Border, I didn't see you kneeling before me. Ren Yueying, you will die a horrible death. No, I must endure it. Otherwise, if Ling Zhao finds out that I accidentally saw their secret, he will definitely kill me to silence me. Even though Partridge Gully carefully concealed his divine consciousness with his 8th-grade divine emperor technique, no one would be able to detect him. However, Ling Zhao, who was drinking tea, suddenly frowned. His divine consciousness appeared in front of the cauldron. Partridge Gully hastily withdrew his divine sense and howled in pain. However, a playful look flashed across Ling Zhao's eyes as he circled around the cauldron. Please don't find out. Partridgely screamed even louder, trying to show the pain he was suffering and distract Ling Zhao's attention. However, before he could finish his sentence, Ling Zhao suddenly waved his hand, and a black ancient pagoda appeared in the sky. Although there was no demonic will on it, it gave off an inexplicable, familiar feeling. This tower, Partridge Gully's eyes narrowed as a trace of confusion appeared in his heart. Where have I seen him before? However, he still couldn't figure out the reason for this. Along with the cauldron, he was sucked into the 4th level of the ancient pagoda by Ling Zhao. Buzz! With a buzzing sound, Ling Zhao also appeared on the 4th floor of the ancient pagoda. Fengling, I brought you a fun toy. Given Lord Taishuan's means, it would be difficult for the divine envoy of the sacred cult to truly break the seal and walk out of the cauldron. However, since the cauldron had been broken, there was still a trace of risk. As a villain, he had to be cautious. This divine envoy was still useful. He couldn't kill him, but he couldn't keep him alive either. The demon subduing ancient pagoda could seal a true demon, so it shouldn't be a problem to trap an 8th-grade divine emperor whose physical body was shattered and his divine soul sealed. However, to be on the safe side, it was best for the little ancestor to keep an eye on him personally. Only then could he be completely at ease. What toy? Feng Ling walked out of the void and stood in front of the cauldron. Until now, Ling Xiao still didn't know where this girl came from. However, she must have some kind of connection with the demon-subduing ancient pagoda. There is an 8th-grade divine emperor in this cauldron. I want to temporarily seal him in the pagoda. Can you help me keep an eye on him? Ling Xiao smiled gently, but Feng Ling frowned and snorted coldly. Humph, are you ordering me to do something? Haha, an 8th-grade divine emperor, the top of the Xingzhou continent. Well, not everyone can suppress him. I will think of another way. Ling Xiao shook his head with a smile and turned to leave. Wait a minute. However, at this moment, Feng Ling's eyes flashed coldly. A mere 8th-grade divine emperor? I can suppress him with one finger. However, you have to promise me one thing. One thing. Ling Xiao looked at Feng Ling warily. This girl's requests were always tricky and harsh, especially delicious. I say, if she were to suggest stewing hua hua, should I reject her? If you fight with others in the future, don't use the spiritual screen to block it. I want to see the details. Ling Xiao was stunned. He didn't say anything for a long time and finally swallowed hard. Little girl, are you sure you don't get angry after seeing too much of this? However, it's fine. She's a lowly after all. It seems that I have to seriously demonstrate some classic moves in the future. Okay, I promise you. However, don't worry. I will make him kneel. He won't be able to stand up until he dies. Disdain appeared on Feng Ling's face. She waved her hand lightly, and a layer of bright silver light enveloped the cauldron. Then, the screams of the divine emissary of the sacred sect suddenly disappeared. Even with Ling Xiao's temperament, he was shocked when he saw this scene. Although he had seen Feng Ling suppress the dragon vein with a wave of her hand, but she was an 8th-grade divine emperor. If he could deal with this little ancestor, wouldn't he be able to eliminate the sacred sect easily? However, this girl's personality was really strange and unpredictable. Even Ling Xiao couldn't find a suitable way to deal with her. It's better to wait and see. I have time. I'll wait for you to grow up. Young master? Young master? In the main hall of the Cold Palace, the Cold Moon Palace master held a copper pot and called out softly. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed and a bitter smile appeared on his face. Palace master, I was rude. However, Lord Divine Envoy just sent me a message with his divine soul. Lord Divine Envoy. The Cold Moon Palace master's jade-like hands trembled slightly. She also had a grave expression on her face. What did Lord say? Young master, I was rude. With Lord Divine Envoy's means, it was easy for him to send a message with his divine consciousness. Even she had a divine sound transmission talisman with which she could communicate with Lord Divine Envoy. Therefore, the Cold Moon Palace master didn't have any doubts. However, since Lord Divine Envoy didn't send me a message, I'm afraid there are some things that are inconvenient for him to say. Therefore, it was indeed rude of her to ask this question. It's okay. Lord Divine Envoy might think that you must be very busy since the opening of the Immortals world is imminent. Thus, he gave me a heads up and asked me to ask Palace Master to do something. Ling Xiao smiled gently. He had a refined temperament and an immortal aura lingered around him. A heads up. The Cold Moon Palace Master couldn't react in time. Then, shock appeared in her eyes. In just a few days, this Lord Ling Xiao has gained such high regard from Lord Divine Envoy? Since he wants me to do something, He informed young master and then passed it on to me? It looks like Lord Divine Envoy is really planning to help young master ascend. Strangely, the Cold Moon Palace master looked at Ling Xiao with an even more respectful gaze. Chapter 530. Young Master, what orders does Milord have? The Cold Moon Palace master took a deep breath and looked at Ling Xiao with a serious expression. Milord said that she will secretly visit the Great Yuan Empire soon and give the Great Yuan Emperor a glorious mission. Milord orders you to make a trip to the Great Yuan Empire and inform the Great Yuan Emperor not to make this public. Ling Xiao raised his hand and took a sip of tea. The Great Yuan Empire? The Cold Moon Palace master's eyes turned serious. She stood up and bowed deeply to Ling Xiao. Young master, don't worry. I will head to the Great Yuan Empire now. Oh right. Young master, you said that you have something to tell me. What is it? The immortal world is about to open. This matter is very important. I hope that Palace Master can inform your disciples to follow my orders after entering the immortal world. Ling Xiao said in a deep voice. The Cold Moon Palace Master immediately smiled. So it is about this matter. Young Master, don't worry. I will inform my disciples and ask them to follow young Master's orders. That's great. Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. In his plan, someone had to die. Of course, Ling Xiao didn't lack death warriors. But if he could kill the Cold Moon Palace's disciples, why should he kill the people he had painstakingly nurtured? Of course, all these excuses were just to make the divine messenger of the sacred sect believe that Ren Yueying was now a vassal of the Sky Demon. At that time, he would only need to use a little trick to make the two of them fight. It would be difficult to kill a 7th-grade God Emperor expert. But with the divine messenger, everything would be much simpler. You are the demon. You are the demon. The two righteous experts fought each other to eliminate the demon. When the time was right, the true demon would take action and reap the benefit. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? As for why he didn't send Ning Tiance and Xiao Beifa to lead the army, with such a huge commotion, it would definitely be noticed by others. The sacred sect would send people to the western border to investigate the truth sooner or later. Ling Xiao couldn't possibly kill everyone in the western border. Therefore, he had to get rid of these two people silently. Only then would he be able to pin the blame firmly on a certain Great Yuan Emperor. Step by step, the plan. Eliminating all risks and grasping the world's situation. I, Ling Xiao, am unparalleled in intelligence and handsome. Pucci. Even if that divine envoy of the Holy Church died, he probably wouldn't understand that Han Yu Palace Master's respect was actually reverence for the Holy Church and the identity of the divine envoy, right? Young Master, I'm a-going. The Cold Moon Palace Master bowed slightly and disappeared without a trace. The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up into a smile. He poured himself a cup of tea and tasted it. After a long while, he stood up and walked down the mountain. Lord Ling Xiao. At the foot of Frigid Moon Mountain, several elders and disciples who were guarding the mountain hurriedly bowed to Ling Xiao when they saw him. Open the formation. I need to go out for a while. Ling Xiao spoke indifferently, and those elders and disciples didn't dare have any doubts. They opened up a corner of the grand formation and watched as Ling Xiao's figure vanished into the distance. Master. It wasn't until Ling Xiao's figure was 100 miles away that a golden-robed figure appeared in the void and bowed to him respectfully. Ever since Ling Xiao came to Frigid Moon Divine Palace, Layered Shadow had been hiding nearby, waiting for his orders. The Divine Master of the Holy Church was at the top of the world and regarded himself as invincible. Therefore, he probably didn't expect that someone in the Holy Continent would dare to kill the divine envoy of the Holy Church and use his demonic body to preach. Of course, in the Divine Master's eyes, the only person who could kill an 8th-grade divine emperor other than the people of the Holy Church was Tao Master Taixien. However, Dao Master Taishan hid in Dao Master Taishan all year round and didn't dare to take a step out. Therefore, in the western border, 8th grade divine emperors were already invincible. Even if they encountered danger, they wouldn't die easily, and it was even more impossible for them to be imprisoned. This was the key to the success of Ling Zhao's plan. You are indeed standing on the second layer and looking down on the first layer as ant. However, although I'm on the first layer, it's just an illusion that you see. When it came to planning, strength was one thing, but vision was also quite important. Go to the Great Qin Empire first and pass this spiritual consciousness voice transmission talisman to Qin Wushuang. Tell him that no matter what, he must defend Xingyang City to the death and must not send out troops. In addition, I will inform Ning Tiance to lead the troops into Xingyang City when trouble arises and defend the city together. Then, Ling Zhao's lips suddenly curled into a smile. Go to Diyuan and tell the primitive emperor so that he can rest assured. Yes, my lord. Hearing Ling Zhao's spiritual consciousness voice transmission, as well as the additional cultivation technique and soul seal in his soul sea, Layered Shadow's eyes narrowed slightly and a trace of shock emerged from the bottom of his heart. This lord of mine is truly sinister, ruthless, and scheming enough. Go. Ling Zhao's expression was indifferent, and Layered Shadow no longer hesitated and headed towards the Great Qin Empire. When Layered Shadow's figure disappeared, Ling Xiao used the soul seal and gave instructions to Qiao Yunli, who was far away in Great Zhou, before returning to Frigid Moon Celestial Mountain. Today, the divine pillar at the entrance of the immortal world had turned pure gold. In the depths of the Celestial Mountain, an immortal gate gradually revealed its true form. It wouldn't be long before the most mysterious relic in Shijiang would be completely opened. As for whether this trip would be a blessing or a misfortune, for most people it would be a blessing. For me, Ling Xiao, it's just the end of a chess game. Of course, this chess game wouldn't end in 3 to 5 days. By the time Ling Xiao came out of the secret realm, Shijiang would have been turned upside down. As for Emperor Xia, of course, Ling Xiao also gave a death order. If there were any enemies, kill them without mercy. F***ck. At this moment, Emperor Xia, who was in the Xia Palace, was in a panic. You took away all the elites of Great Xia, the Imperial Advisor, and the Sikong clan. If there are any enemies, I will kill them without mercy with a hammer? Suddenly, Emperor Xia felt that it was time for him to build a mausoleum. Great Zhou Imperial Palace. Ning Tiance looked at Qiao Yunli in surprise. He was puzzled. Imperial Advisor, you mean? Brother Xiao wants us to retreat all the way to the south and enter the imperial capital of Great Qin? That's right. Master said that there will be a great change in Shijiang soon. When the primitive emperor invades, we will pretend to be defeated and retreat to Xingyang City. We will defend the city with Empress Wushuang. Qiao Yunli was also confused. Why would Master give up the Great Zhou dynasty so easily after conquering it? Primitive emperor? Although the Great Yuan Empire was the head of the 8 empires, Master meant that the Great Qin Empire was already in the bag. With 3 empires in hand, why would he be afraid of the Great Yuan Empire? Of course, this wasn't Qiao Yunli's anger, but his heartache for Master. Although he didn't know what Master was worried about, he still felt heartache. Master, you're the man who should stand at the top of Shijiang. I know. Ning Tiance nodded silently and didn't say anything else. Now that the rebels of Great Zhou were eliminated, the imperial court was stable. Nonsense, how could it not be stable? Those who weren't stable were all killed, and only the obedient dogs were left. But Brother Zhao's action, forget it. With Ning Tiance's understanding of Ling Xiao, this young man wouldn't make a decision for no reason. Since he wanted to defend Xingyang City, there must be a reason. Chapter 531. Inside the main hall of the Great Qin Imperial Palace. Qin Wushuang sat on the throne and looked at a woman in black standing in the middle of the hall. His brows were somewhat alert. Especially from this woman's body, that gloomy presence caused people to feel inexplicably uneasy. If she didn't say that she came under Ling Zhao's order, Qin Wushuang would most likely have already made a move and captured her. "I'm here to pass a message to the Empress." Young Master Ling Xiao said that no matter what happens in the western border, the Empress only needs to defend Xinjiang City to the death. When the time comes, Ning Tiance will lead an army to help the Empress. Layered Shadow smiled eerily. Golden light flashed in his hand and turned into a talisman. He threw it at Qin Wushuang. "Also, this message talisman is what the young master asked me to pass to you." As soon as he finished speaking, Layered Shadow turned around and walked out of the hall without hesitation. However, Qin Wushuang frowned and looked at the golden talisman in his hand coldly. Unforeseen event? What could happen at the western border? The talisman flashed and Ling Zhao's voice came from it. "Wushuang, according to my investigation, that great emperor is an accomplice of the ghost demon. Now, he is plotting to unify the western border. I have already ordered people to report this matter to the divine envoy of the holy sect. Regardless, if I don't return, you must not fight with him. You must not perform the secret technique Qin Wupa taught you. Remember." Ling Zhao's voice was filled with seriousness. To be safe, the latter even sent a message to Xiao Beifa through the dragon ring. He ordered him to control the situation and stay in the city with peace of mind. What a joke. You are going to lead the army. If that primitive emperor kills you, wouldn't my plan be for nothing? What? The primitive emperor is an accomplice of the ghost demon. Qin Wushuang's pretty face turned pale. In an instant, he figured out the reason. Although Qin Wupa's methods were strange, but, after all, he was alone. How could he kill the Emperor clan? He must be supported by a powerhouse. Only, Qin Wushuang never dreamed that this powerhouse was the head of the 8 dynasties, the Great Yuan dynasty. It seems that cousin really cares about me. Inexplicably, a trace of warmth emerged from the bottom of Qin Wushuang's heart. He immediately ordered the Qin elite warriors to defend Xinjiang City. She didn't dare to disobey Ling Xiao. Now that he was at the frigid moon celestial mountain, he was fully focused on fighting for the fortune of the immortals. Although I can't help him, I must guard my home well and wait for him to come back from the spring. Oh no, wait for him to come back from the immortal mountain. Moreover, since Ling Xiao had said that he had ordered someone to report to the saint's oracle, the saint would definitely take action. As for why he didn't ask him to use that ghostly technique, of course, my cousin was worried that I would be mistaken for a demon by the saint's sect and killed. It was reasonable and righteous. Ling Xiao, to be able to steal your warmth for 2 days in this lifetime is an unparalleled fortune. At the same time, in Diyuan's royal palace, a dignified middle-aged man in imperial robes stood with his hands behind his back, gazing into the distance. Behind him, there was an old servant in blue who was bowing. "Monarch, that person just now was the Cold Moon Palace Master?" "Yes." The primitive emperor, whose real name was Yuan Gexing, was also Yuan Yao's biological father. He was currently the most powerful person in Xinjiang. At this moment there was excitement on his face, but there was also a trace of complicated meaning. Was the arrival of the oracle a blessing or a curse? Unifying Xinjiang was his ambition for hegemony. But inexplicably, the primitive emperor felt a little uneasy. Sometimes luck came too suddenly, and it wasn't necessarily a good thing. But he didn't dare to provoke the saint's oracle. Even the Cold Moon Palace Master wasn't someone he could offend. Originally, the primitive emperor wanted to accumulate his foundation, nurture Yuan Yao, and conquer Xinjiang step by step. Only then could he feel at ease. But buzz. Suddenly, a golden light burst forth from the distant horizon. Countless divine shadows filled the sky, and a new sun could be vaguely seen breaking through the sky, shining above De Yuan's palace. The primitive emperor's eyes narrowed, but there was a trace of humility on his face. So fast? The cold moon palace master had just left, and the oracle had already arrived? The stacked shadow was in midair, overlooking the golden palace below. Her face revealed indifference, just like a god. But at this moment there wasn't a trace of spiritual power fluctuation on her body, as if she had merged with heaven and earth. You are, with the primitive emperor's identity. He naturally hadn't seen the true appearance of the saint's oracle. Even in the entire Xinjiang, only the cold moon palace master and Han Qingqiu had seen this oracle. Oh, and Ling Xiao and the rest. So, although the primitive emperor had guessed, he didn't dare to speak rashly. Buzz. The stacked shadow waved casually, and a golden token instantly turned into a stream of light, appearing above the primitive emperor's head. The pressure on it shook the heavens, and Tao patterns rippled, as if it had transcended this world. In order to prevent the oracle from being forged, every oracle of the saint had a trace of the oracle's divine power inscribed on it. With such power, not to mention a mere 6th-grade primitive emperor, even an 8th-grade or 9th-grade primitive emperor would feel fear upon seeing it. Greetings to the oracle. Finally, the primitive emperor didn't dare to hesitate any longer. He directly knelt on the ground, bowed, and shouted. Behind him, the old attendant also knelt on the ground in fear, and his entire body was trembling for no reason. The saint's oracle, just these 4 words alone could be regarded as a supreme existence in the 4 borders. Especially for those who stood at the pinnacle of the 4 borders, they knew how terrifying the saint was. Suppressing the heavens and the earth, making the universe bow down in worship. Compared to ordinary people and cultivators, the reverence in the God Emperor's heart would only be stronger, because the higher you stood, the more you would realize how terrifying those who stood at the pinnacle of the heavens were. Too far away, although there was worship, there was still a lack of fear in the end. Has Rin Yueying told you the purpose of my visit? The stacked shadow figure descended from the sky, and there seemed to be thousands of divine shadows following behind him, mysterious and unfathomable. In terms of strength, she was indeed no match for the God Emperor. But in terms of concealment techniques, who in the entire Xinjiang could be a match for her? Moreover, even if the primitive emperor was given 100 guts, he wouldn't dare to use his soul consciousness to probe this oracle. If he angered the oracle, wouldn't he be courting death by punishing him for the crime of disrespect? The oracle was an identity, and seeing it was equivalent to seeing the oracle in person. In other words, even if the one who came today was a pig with the oracle hanging on his neck, the primitive emperor would still have to kneel. My lord, Palace Master Ren has informed me that you will bestow upon the Yuan dynasty a great fortune. The primitive emperor still didn't dare to get up, and he didn't even dare to raise his head to look at the oracle in front of him. Hearing that, the corner of stacked shadow's mouth suddenly raised into a smile. It was a great fortune. 1 step straight to the Western paradise. That's right, I have a scripture that was passed down from the upper realm. Now I will impart it to you. You can use the power of this scripture to unify the Xinjiang as soon as possible. Before I return to the central border, I don't want to see a chaotic Xinjiang. After saying that, stacked shadow sighed again. Now that the world is in chaos, the people have no way to make a living. The rise and fall of the world is all because of the suffering of the people. If you want the world to be stable, this plan has to be done. Do you understand? The world to be stable, the people have no way to make a living? The primitive emperor's face instantly turned dull. Originally, he still had doubts about the oracle's intentions, but now, after hearing what the oracle said, he seemed to understand. Chapter 532. The divine messenger of the saint preached the sacred scripture. He took the world's peace as his responsibility, and the prosperity of the righteous path as his foundation. Xinjiang was in a state of chaos after years of wars. If he wanted to bring peace to the people, the only way was to unify. At this moment, the primitive emperor's worries were all gone, and he even felt an inexplicable sense of holiness. The Deyuan Empire was the head of the 8 dynasties. Although his cultivation was only at level 6, he had faintly touched the threshold of level 7. If he was a pig, he would know that handing this responsibility to Deyuan would yield twice the result with half the effort. Originally, the primitive emperor was still hesitating. There must be a reason for conquering the world. Otherwise, he would not have the right to do so, and the resistance would be great. However, what made the primitive emperor a little doubtful was that with the saint's prestige, wouldn't it be easier to get the 7 dynasties to submit? The general trend of the world is to unite after being separated for a long time. What the saint wants is a Xinjiang that is absolutely loyal to the divine master, and not one that looks united but is divided at heart. Therefore, primitive emperor, you don't have to worry. You can send troops to conquer, kill those who are disloyal, and accept those who are sincere. Of course, how could Ling Xiao not know about the primitive emperor's doubts? Therefore, he had already prepared an explanation. I see. Hearing this, the primitive emperor nodded secretly. That's right. Since the saint was determined to unify Xinjiang, what they wanted was naturally not a dynasty with ulterior motives. They wanted a dynasty that was completely loyal to the saint and had absolute rule over Xinjiang. The emperors of the 7 dynasties were all arrogant. Even if they pretended to submit due to the prestige of the saint, why would they submit sincerely? There can be no construction without destruction. The divine messenger had indeed seen through everything. Open your mind, I will teach you the divine technique. Of course, to achieve eternal glory, your Yuan clan will have to pay a price. Folded Shadow's voice was full of majesty, and a touch of bitterness flashed in the primitive emperor's eyes. This was the real reason why he was hesitating. The saint's support would not come without a price. Most likely, Deyuan would become the only ruler of Xinjiang in the near future, but his Yuan clan would also become the most loyal servants of the saint. This was a privilege, but also a little less freedom. But what can I do? Am I supposed to refuse in front of the oracle? I'm afraid that my lord can kill me with a wave of his hand. Rather than that, it would be better to first unify the western border, and then slowly plan. After all, Yuan Yao was the true hope of the Yuan clan's revival. Yes, my lord. The primitive emperor took a deep breath and opened his mind, allowing the overlapping shadows to plant Ling Zhao's soul imprint in his sea of consciousness. At the same time, a corpse-controlling technique recorded in the profound Inyama scripture was also imprinted in the Yuan sovereign's soul sea. With this divine seal, you are now a member of the saint cult. Even if I leave the Xinjiang in the future, the people of the saint cult will know your identity. So, let go of your hands and feet and do it boldly. While the other empires are unprepared, you should start plotting. With that, Stacked Shadow turned around and stepped into the void. 10,000 shadows roared behind her as her figure gradually disappeared into the horizon. The primitive emperor frowned as he stared at the upper realm technique called Sacred Tome of Light in his Sea of Soul. He felt that something was amiss. Using corpses as the Tao, he could plunder death energy to cultivate. At the same time, he could control corpses to form an army. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem to have anything to do with light. But now, with the divine seal planted in his Sea of Soul, his thoughts were no longer under his control. Therefore, the primitive emperor didn't care too much about it. Instead, he was considering which empire he should start from. Great Xia? Great Zhou? Now that the 2 empires were in turmoil, it was the most suitable time for a punitive expedition. However, Great Zhou still had millions of soldiers under Ning Tian's command. If he rashly fought, he was bound to suffer heavy losses. On the contrary, Emperor Xia of Great Xia was a person who stole the country and didn't have a legitimate title. Now that he was an empty shell, it would be unreasonable to not attack him. Pass down the order. I will personally lead an army to punitive expedition against Great Xia. The primitive emperor's eyes flickered with a touch of blue as he turned around and walked toward the imperial palace. Since he had the backing of the divine envoy, he had nothing to worry about. Although that cultivation method was strange and evil, it could be said to be marvelous on the battlefield. Shijiang, I want it. Cultivation, I want it too. With death energy as the medium, the peak god emperor realm was just around the corner. Cold Moon, Celestial Mountain. Ling Xiao stood on the mountain peak with his hands behind his back, overlooking the distance. The mountain breeze blew gently, fluttering his white robe like an immortal. The Cold Moon Palace Master had just left, and there was an additional divine sense in his soul sea. As long as he wanted, he could shatter the soul seal at any time and kill the primitive emperor on the spot. Thus, the chess game was set. Prodigies of Shijiang, regardless of whether you can walk out of the immortal world in the end, it doesn't mean much. Because when the time comes, even if you are lucky enough to survive, you will be shocked to see that my empire is gone. As for why Ling Xiao didn't order Overlapping Shadow to repeat the same trick and control all the emperors of the empires for his own use. TSK. All of these people were reputable experts in the Western Territory, so no matter if they were killed or taken into the realms as sacrificial warriors, it would definitely draw attention. Moreover, the more soul seals were planted, the greater the risk of being exposed. Acting, of course, was a mixture of truth and falsehood to confuse people. When the Great Yuan Empire sent troops to punitive expedition against Shijiang, the remaining empires resisted with all their might and witnessed the primitive emperor turning into an evil ghost. Only then would the people of the Saint believe that the greatest demon in Shijiang was the primitive emperor. When the time came, the experts of the Saint would search his soul to kill him. And Ling Xiao only needed a thought to shatter his soul sea. As expected of an evil demon, he is indeed ruthless. He even destroyed a wisp of my divine soul before he died. Killing two birds with one stone, it was flawless and flawless. Looking at Shijiang, who else could be a match for the Great Qin? Of course, with the primitive emperor's strength, it would be a little less convincing if he could kill an 8th-grade divine emperor without anyone knowing. Thus, there was still a need to drag someone else to take the blame. Oh, it should be a clan. Young Master Han Qingqiu's figure walked over from afar and stood beside Ling Xiao with an inexplicable melancholy on her pretty face. Although this young master in front of her had brilliant means and was ruthless in his actions, but it would be difficult for him to destroy the Saint sect and even kill the Cold Moon Palace Master alone. The road to revenge was long and endless. You have something on your mind? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and the corner of his mouth raised into a sinister smile. Han Qingqiu just shook her head and said indifferently, "The Cold Moon Palace Master has given the order that everyone will listen to your orders during this trip to the immortal world. Don't worry, I will do what I promised you. Take a good look at the forest in front of you. Perhaps after we leave the immortal world, they will no longer exist." Ling Xiao smiled faintly and his eyes were clear. A look of surprise flashed across Han Qingqiu's pretty face. Does this mean young master intends to destroy the Cold Moon Palace after the trip to the immortal world? Now, this palace's elders had all surrendered to the Saint sect. The only one who truly wanted to take revenge for the previous palace master was probably her. Thus, whether this palace was destroyed or not, Han Qingqiu was not reluctant to part with it. As long as she could kill Ren Yuing and find out the truth of the palace master's death, not to mention the destruction of the Cold Moon Palace, even if the 8 dynasties fell, so what? However, Han Qingqiu wanted to say something but hesitated. There was no fortune in the immortal world. It could even be said to be dangerous. However, she did not know how to tell this to Ling Xiao. She was afraid that there would be another unforeseen event. Forget it, let's take one step at a time. It seems that the immortal world will be opened in 1 or 2 days. At that time, you just need to listen to my orders and everything will be done naturally. Ling Xiao did not ask much. He patted Han Qingqiu's shoulder lightly and turned around to walk towards the main hall in the mountain. The chess pieces had been placed. It was time to summon the treasure-hunting beast again. Xiaofeng, I have high hopes for you. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.